I'd like to call to order the meeting of June 27th, 2012 of the Milton School Committee. And as is our custom, I invite you to rise with us and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. On tonight's agenda, just a couple of notes. To the Finance Subcommittee, I believe we're not going to do the May expenditure report tonight, but we are going to have a brief update on full-day kindergarten enrollment for the fall. And we also have minutes of May 23rd, which were in your packet.
Chair?
Yep.
I have two informational items I'd like to discuss. One is a draft outline for orientation of new school committee members that I'd like to distribute for discussion only. And the second is an executive session. I'd like to talk about collective bargaining preparation and strategy.
Okay, I'll add the orientation under my report.
Great.
And then we'll add the other under executive session. Ms. Kelly?
I just wanted to ask the administration if there was a conditional vote being asked for on the full-day kindergarten? Yes. That would need to be noted on the agenda.
Any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none? Oh, I did want to make one other change. I'd like to move the MASC awards up to the beginning right after Citizens Speak, since we have guests here for that. Anything else? Right, then seeing none, we'll declare the agenda approved. Citizens Speak, do we have anyone signed up? Could I? Thank you very much. Nick Bradshaw, please join us at the table up here.
Either seat or?
Anywhere.
Okay.
They'll all catch you on those mics.
Hello, my name is Nikkei Bradshaw, 127 Craig Street. Good evening, and thank you for listening to my concerns. My husband, Philip, of the same address, is home with our daughter, so I will be speaking on behalf of the family. Our daughter is an energetic, compassionate, clever little girl who will be a first grader at the Glover this fall. She participated in the integrated preschool program and recently graduated from kindergarten over at the Glover. There are three more very important things that you need to know about her. She is an African American. She has an individualized education program. She is enrolled in the English program in the Milton Public Schools. Our daughter is an African American. So if you look at the data, she's a minority at the Glover School. This is not a problem. This is an asset. She has a lot to teach others about her culture. Our daughter has an IEP. So if you look at the data, she is a minority in the Milton Public Schools. This is not a problem. This is an asset. She has strengths like everyone else. She's an exceptional person who will teach others and learn about herself, for herself, about inclusion, acceptance, and awareness. Our daughter is enrolled in the English program at the Glover School. So if you look at the data, she's a minority for a number of reasons, and this is a problem. Our daughter is a minority because the data for the 2012-2013 school year shows that less than 30% of the first graders at the Glover will be participating in the English program. This is a problem, and there's nothing she can do about it. This is a problem only you can fix. And we are requesting that you please do something, that you act before the first day of the school to fix this problem. Our daughter is a minority because there are not enough first grade girls participating in the English program. If you look at the data broken down by gender for her first grade classroom, you will understand that we have surpassed the critical breaking point. Again, this is a problem, and there is nothing she can do about it. So we are requesting that you please do something about it, that you act now. When we enrolled our daughter in the Milton Public Schools, we believed that the administration and school committee members were committed to working collaboratively with parents and community members to enrich the educational experience for each and every student, pre-K through 12th grade, in both the French immersion and the English program. We believe this was true because it's stated on the Milton Public School website. We chose the English program, and now it appears that our daughter is no longer entitled to a healthy, vibrant, enriched educational experience. The data tells the story. So my questions are, what does the data tell you about the district's ability to maintain 2 quality programs to offer to each and every student? What does the data, broken down by gender, tell you about the district's ability to offer a healthy, vibrant, and rich educational experience for each and every student? What does the data, broken down by students on IEPs in each program, tell you about the enrollment trends? The data tells the story, and it's up to you to rewrite the ending. To be completely transparent, my husband and I were prepared to advocate for inclusion, acceptance, and awareness. We were not prepared to advocate for a healthy and vibrant educational experience because we chose to enroll our daughter in the English program in a public school. Nevertheless, we are committed to obtaining a free, appropriate public education for our daughter for the 2012-2013 school year. We are requesting that you please look at the data for the English program enrollment, that you take a moment and take a look at the data for the co-taught first grade classroom, and then explain your plan to foster a healthy and vibrant educational experience for each and every student. Our daughter is counting on you to keep your promise and honor your commitment to both programs. Thank you for your time and your commitment to all of our students.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's right.
All right. Well, as people may remember, several months ago, we voted to recommend 2 awards from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, one for Friend of Public Education, one for Outstanding School Partner. And as we mentioned at a previous meeting, both awards have been granted by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. So tonight we have as our guest Glenn Kuchar, who is the Executive Director of MASC, who is here with us to present these awards. So, Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will be very brief. MASC began asking our member districts to recognize people who have made sustained, meaningful, and continuous contributions to the public schools. We get about 90 nominations per year. This year, we have only 3 Friends of Public Education that we are recognizing. And unusually for me, I actually know the recipient. That never happens. It had nothing to do with the fact that one of those 3 awards is being presented. So we're very delighted to recognize Ada Rosemarin, and we're very pleased once again to recognize the Copeland Family Foundation, which is our only the 2nd time an organization has been recognized twice. So, Mr. Chairman, as the nominator representing the nominating school committee, I'd like to present these recognition awards to you so that you can present them to the honorants.
Thank you very much. So if Ada Rosemarin would like to join us up here. The award reads, Ada Rosemarin, Friend of Public Education, for your support, commitment, leadership, and sustained efforts to enhance the educational opportunities of the students of the Milton Public Schools, 2012. For those who don't know, Ada wrote the original grant for the Milton Early Childhood Alliance, has been an unfailing advocate for early childhood education, and in fact, if any one person could be thought to be responsible for our full-day kindergarten program, it would have to be Ada. We have now upwards of 95% of our kindergarten students who take full-day kindergarten. It's an amazing result, and it's due more to Ada than to anyone else. So thank you very much on behalf of the school.
I do that all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
And if I might, Ada, as Chairman Pavlicek has indicated, was instrumental in building community support for the full-day kindergarten and walking us through the initial grant in each year. But Ada Rosemarin has also taken a leadership role with our kindergarten teachers on curriculum, professional development, working towards certification, and is almost in daily contact with us and our kindergarten teachers and principals, and you have been an unbelievable advocate for early education, but as Chairman Pavlicek said, your name is synonymous with what has to be one of the most successful full-day kindergarten programs in the state. And every kindergarten teacher, John Phelan, Maculus, and I, and all of our principals would give you tremendous credit. So you have made a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Unless you'd like to stay and give a speech.
Well, I'll just say quickly, I'm so proud of the full-day kindergarten program, as you all know. It's been a pleasure working with the teaching staff, the principals, the administration has been so supportive, and the school committee has provided the leadership. And your goal of trying to narrow that achievement gap for all children in Milton Public Schools is you're getting a very strong start with full-day kindergarten and what you're doing for the youngest members of the school system. And I applaud you for that, and just say keep up the great work, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Ada.
Ms. Gormley, why don't you come up and receive this on behalf of the Copelands, because
Be my honor.
you know where they live. The Copeland Family Foundation is receiving the Outstanding School Partner Award for your support, commitment, leadership, and sustained efforts to enhance the educational opportunities of the students of the Milton Public Schools. It's impossible to know where to begin to describe the contributions of the Copeland Family Foundation over the years, from their incredible contributions to the school building project, to various different grants and so forth where they don't like to be known. They have contributed even through issues with the library and the 350th anniversary celebration, and in just innumerable ways to the town of Milton. So it was really not very hard to think of them as the outstanding school partners. So Ms. Gormley, if you would, at their next board meeting, present that to that.
And I'm sure they're watching, and they watched when the school committee and drove and wanted them nominated. So I'm sure they're watching tonight and appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Pavlicek.
Why don't you go in the middle with them?
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you for coming, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to say a special word of thanks to Glenn Kuchar, who rearranged his schedule in order to be here tonight, so thank you very much. The minutes of May 23rd would be the next order on our agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walker. Might I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Kelly. Thank you. Any comments, corrections, amendments? Ms. Kelly?
Yeah, we're talking about, sorry, the May 23rd? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it says not present Mary Kelly and Leroy Walker, however, we arrived late. So I guess I would prefer that, am I reading the right one? People looking at me like I'm two heads. That Mary Kelly and Leroy Walker be stricken from the not present section, but it's noted above that we arrived late.
Yes. It would be hard to be both, correct.
Indeed. Thank you.
The only note I had, oh no, it was correct. It's not corrected in the original one that went out in the email, but it's correct. Anything else on the minutes of May 23rd? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, abstaining? One abstention. So, Ms. Bagley Jones abstained.
I think Ms. Padera will have to abstain as well.
Yeah, the custom is we don't, so we'll put Ms. Padera down as an abstention as well, since she wasn't here at that meeting. All right, and at that point, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Ms. Gormley.
Thank you, Chairman Pavlicek. First on our agenda, we have guests here tonight. I'd like to ask us to join Marvin Gordon, Dr. Frank Giuliano, and two Mr. Lynches, I believe, are going to join us at the table for our MPEG presentation, Milton Public Education and Government Television.
Michael, sit here, he's got it.
Thanks. MPEG stands for Milton Public Education and Government Television. So this has been a long-standing partnership that is really flourishing, and I'll turn the presentation over to Mr. Lynch, Marvin Gordon, Dr. Giuliano, and Mr. Lynch.
Bernie Lynch, our chairman, will start off by
I'll make the introductions.
what the position of each of them is.
Okay. We have Marvin Gordon, a former school committee member of your board here, also a former selectman. He's the clerk of our corporation. We have Dr. Frank Giuliano, who, AKA Mary Gormley, he was the former superintendent of schools here in Milton. We have Michael Lynch, who is our executive director of MPEG Access, and Bernie Lynch, I'm the president of MPEG Access. Frank is going to do a lot of talking because he's our treasurer. And Marvin always does talking, as we know. But Michael is up front because Michael has produced some videos to show you the black boxes, that I call it the black studio downstairs, and the big renovations that we've just completed now at the Pierce Middle School. So,
This is, basically, we're here to give you a progress report, which is long in coming, but it's actually reaching fruition, in that with the school committee's support, by granting us a lease at the Pierce Middle School to equip and build a studio and offices. We have, it's been a win-win for both Milton Access TV and for the Milton school system and for the community as a whole, because we're just about almost finished with construction at Pierce, to the tune of, which, by the way, is at no cost to the taxpayers of the town and at no cost to the Milton school system. It's all being funded with our share of revenues from Comcast and basically from Comcast and dispense that is funneled through this Board of Selectmen, who have also been very supportive of this whole project. We've invested at the Pierce School, which parenthetically is a leasehold improvement that really, we have the lease on it, but it's your property, what we're building, and we've invested approximately $187,000 to date. we've invested about a total of $40,000, some of which is equipment that's ours, but a lot of which is an improvement to the studio room that's downstairs in this building. Both of these are going to be wonderful facilities that will be integrated into your curriculum and give the kids throughout the system the opportunity to learn about media, to produce, and be a part of the TV scene. And this will also show the whole community that looks in on our cable programs of what's going on at the schools and how we're enhancing the curriculum with this program. There's one thing that I am going to add that Mary hasn't heard before, but there's one thing I am going to ask of the school committee tonight, because this is just a minor financial matter that doesn't cost any money, but based on the fact that it's taken us 2 years to get to this point of completing the studio, our lease now expires in 3 years, and our CPAs say that we have to amortize all the new equipment we're buying based on the length of the lease. So if the school committee can find it in its heart to give us an extension of the lease to the 5-year period, that will help our financial statements. From a cash flow point of view, it makes no difference. But from a financial statement point of view, it makes MATV look better, and it does not necessitate, and it gives us actually more ability to if necessary, finance new equipment. We've invested $187,000 in this facility at Pierce. We've also have purchase orders in for $90,000. I think that's right, isn't it? $90,000 in new equipment, which will be one of the objectives that the board of MATV has been after for a long time, is that we be able to do more than one community event simultaneously and broadcasting. And right now, if you look, we have 2 channels going, but they all have to be the same thing. Whereas if the school committee is meeting here and the selectmen are meeting at the town hall at the same time, one of them has to be recorded and played later. A lot of the new equipment we're getting and working with the cable companies, we hope to be able to have them going on simultaneously so that the viewers can choose one or the other, and nobody
Either the
has to
school
be-
committee or the selectmen. That's going to be a
Yeah,
great...
I mean, it'll be their choice, not our choice as to who we record. That, again, is a win-win for all concerned. There are some problems with locales, like we can't have 2 programs coming from the high school that are simultaneous. One has to be, we have sort of 2, they have to be in different home bases, so to speak. Mike is going to show us what we've accomplished at Pierce. I would suggest that if you see fit, that the school committee, again, another thing to show the community what's been done, but that the school committee might consider after the summer, in the fall, having one of their meetings in the new studio that will show the community what we have going there and what the ability is. So you might want to think about having one of your meetings there, which is, again, utilizing a new facility and showing what $187,000 of improvement to your physical plant and a lot of money invested in equipment is doing for the town, for the children in the school system, and for the total value of your physical plant. So that's basically what we're here for. He's going to show you, Mike's going to show you a video of the before and after at Pierce. And Frank wants to talk a little bit about the finances, I guess.
Yeah. Well, really, the purpose of the cable program and doing all of these rooms really is part of cooperation with the schools, and that's where I come from. Marvin recruited me to come in to do the work, make sure things get built. We were going to do something in here also, but they switched us down to room 245, and I guess they call it the black box or something like that, where you have all the equipment in there now, and we had architects come in and over at the middle school and did that over, and that's just about finished. Well, tomorrow I think we're going to have a punch list on it, and the equipment will be in shortly.
July 9th.
July 9th, I think, we'll be moving the office down there and be ready to go to work. But the important thing, I think, is that, you know, how do the schools take advantage of this facility? There's the middle school youngsters are right there. If something can be built into their curriculum, the high school youngsters can be here or could come down to the studio. It's just not running a TV camera. It's not that at all in my mind. It's this whole technology situation. And it's hard to explain that sometimes, but things are growing so fast. Just a quick little story to where I come from. I have one of my granddaughters, Ohio State, is teaching physics, advanced placement physics in Marlboro. I have one mathematics granddaughter teaching down at a vocational school, another daughter teaching math down in Cohasset. And we sit around the table sometime and talk about things. And the last discussion we had was about holograms. And you may have seen something in the newspaper just recently about these holograms. And you, by the way, own a whole exhibit of holograms with the Milton Art Museum. And that was way back in the 80s when they first started to come out. But we started talking about what holograms can do and the physics of it and the mathematics of it. And because my wife just keeps serving us tea and saying, what's going on here? But it just the whole world is changing. And very shortly, and when I spoke to a friend of mine about my discussion with my grandchildren, he said, I think MIT is working on that now. And lo and behold, there was an article in last week's paper that soon, very soon, you'll see your television, anything you see on TV or in the movies and so forth, will be in 3 dimension without glasses through using the holograms. But that's the kind of thing that opens up the world to children. I mean, it's just not coming in and taking, it's just to know how it all works and how you can deal with all this electronics and other things or so. So I'm hoping that that'll happen. Mike here is committed to working with the students and kind of, sort of an in-kind service for you. I'm sure he'll have to train someone to do this also. But we want him to open it up, really make it exciting. And it's just not why, we're not just going to show the school committee meetings and the selectmen's meetings and so forth. We want to make it something more exciting. So that's why I'm involved, and wish you luck with it.
I guess we'll proceed with your permission with the
Demonstration, the video.
I think Mike's going to talk over this. I don't think there's any, he didn't have time to put sound on.
You want me to shut the lights?
Are we blocking it?
Do you want the lights off, Matt?
I'll shut them.
That's all right, Dr. Giuliano. Matt will get them.
Yeah.
He's clean so far. There, thumbs down.
Len? Yep. Well, they're setting up. I came in a few minutes late, I'm sorry, and I
I'm going to
don't
under
know
my
if we
report.
welcome Becky or not.
Yeah, I'm going to do it under my report. I have a couple.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just thought I'd take advantage of the minute to welcome you.
Was that enough said about education?
So this video will just give you some before and after of the room that we're working on at the Pierce. For the committee members, just to let you know, this is where the old studio was when Pierce was the high school. So it's room 114 and 115. They're right next to each other. It's right near the auditorium for anyone that's been there. This was our office. It was given to us by Jackie Morgan when she moved to the high school. So as you can see, we were in about a 200 square foot room sharing 2 offices, with the adjacent room being the old studio, which when the schools were under construction, it was sort of just roped off and left for when we were coming back, which is the next room that you're going to see here. So it was just, kind of gutted, left. It was actually a swing space for the construction materials during the project. So this room used to be stacked high with old paint cans and ladders, but we got it all cleaned out. So we just wanted to show you the size of it. This is when we moved, so we cleaned out. This used to be my office, what you saw before. Just to kind of give you an idea of the space. It was separated by a wall that went from our office into the studio, which you'll see in a few minutes was demolished and came down. So I have probably about 500 pictures of the project. I just wanted to highlight a couple just to show you. This was our space, and excuse the mess, but this was during the demolition itself, and basically they tore the whole room out so that we could start new. You can see that our wall is now gone that separated the 2 rooms before. And then we started with our partitions and studying to get rooms. We have about 5 rooms now as opposed to just the 2, so we have a full studio, control room, reception area, equipment room, editing room, and even our own bathroom we put into. So you can see here now this is windows looking into the studio, our reception area. And this, we took a video on Monday. It's still, we have our punch list to work through on Thursday, but we are about a week away from complete finished construction. We have our own outside door that will be marked with an awning and a sign so that citizens know where to go. And this is now looking into the studio that used to be there that was completely undone, and we've redone it. We installed lights. We have a new HVAC system that went in that will adequately cool the whole space. There'll be enough seating for about 30 people with a full set for production, so we are hoping to be able to utilize the space more for meetings and public events. It's all about the windows so that everyone can see if there's a live production going on. This is one of the rooms that'll be a control room. This is where we've spent upwards of $100,000 on equipment that'll be installed the week of July 9th.
And Mike, this is the first, we haven't had a studio for 10 years, so this is the first studio.
This is the new equipment room, editing station, and reception area. And just for a point of reference, I'm standing where the wall used to be. So you can see that it really opens up the space now, and we're able to utilize both rooms. You can see here some of the ceiling tiles. We have our inspections coming this week, but this gives you an idea. There's our reception area looking back. And that door you see right now, that actually goes into the Pierce. We kept that so that we can have students come in during the day and/or after school to use the equipment. So that was our Pierce room. Now we're going to show you the room here at the high school. It's room 245. They call it the Black Box Theater because it's actually the old stage of the middle school when it was here. So it has about 30-foot high ceilings, which is good for lighting a production. It's also a computer lab that the students can use editing software while they're actually doing a production. And this is just to highlight, we put in all new electricity, internet jacks, phone jacks, so that we could wire it as a computer lab. It was used as a music room, and it was great because the room is nice and open, but now that it's a computer lab, we had to put in some of the electricity. So you can see it's a pretty big room. This is where the school committee will be moving at the end of the summer. We're going to be putting in more equipment. There's a storage closet that'll act as a control room. And the setup will be semi-permanent, more than what we have now, so that meeting coverage is a lot easier, and you'll be able to hear a lot better too. It's an enclosed room as opposed to being so open in the library, and that'll do wonders for the sound. That's, again, we just wanted to highlight, this is the electricity that MPEG put into the room. And then you can see there, actually when the school was built, there's a lighting grid installed already and all wired, which is great. So we'll be able to purchase studio lights and a lighting control board that'll hook right into the system, so you can actually have a real good student production that's lit well and sounds great and looks great on camera.
And the school committee members will look like Hollywood when they're on, right?
Now, the students can use this, for instance, in morning announcements, instead of being on the radio, you might say, or the loudspeaker system, they can actually do a TV program. So they get used to things like that.
Any questions on the construction part?
Ms. Kelly?
How many seats would be available in this room?
That we're working out over the summer, so we'll know. We've been working with the school administration, because with the open meeting law, we know that there has to be adequate seating for the audience. The good thing about what we've done here at the high school is now you have 2 rooms that you can meet out of live. So we could also, the library could always be reserved for a larger crowd if needed.
The one thing that the film didn't show is in the PS, we installed a brand new bathroom. Didn't cost us but about $100,000, and the hopper's not in yet.
Do you have any other questions?
Any questions for?
About this or about the sheets?
Get the lights again.
So there's no more questions on the construction. We can just talk about the 2 little handouts that I gave you. This is some of the ideas that we have for the partnership between Milton Access and the school system. So one idea that we had that Dr. Giuliano already touched on was having a before-school program for the middle school students. I've toured a couple high schools where they do have a before-school news program. And I like to say, as opposed to hearing the announcements on the loudspeaker, why couldn't we just, watch it on TV? All the classrooms are wired to do that, and it is wired to go live through the town. So we could have, students coming in to do the morning news while their parents are still at home, getting ready for work. They can see them live on TV. So that can happen before school and after school. I was working with Mr. Jett before he was promoted to the high school, but he's ensured me that Dr. Spalding knows what we were planning to do and that we can make that happen. So that can be offered after school. We can, it can take the path of a club or an activity to start, just to see how it works out with the students. It would be about a 6 to 8 week program where the students would it would be like almost like a round table of they would learn each different aspect of TV production, with the goal in mind that at the end that they would be able to produce on their own a live news program. So it's, you'd come in on the week, you'd be able to practice your different stations, and then you can go to the, would rotate every week. We also offer, we offer that to the public, and we offer it, on a one-to-one or on a group basis as needed. So if there's something that the student, needed extra help for, we're there. The studio's open. They can come in at any time, practice their skills before the next session, before they switch over. So that's what we'd like to plan for the middle school at this point. For the high school, we're using the room 245. What we've done in the past, and it's taken a little turn off course with the construction, but every week at the high school, there's block days, which I believe are about an hour and a half to 2 hours long, which is a great time for us to come in to help with the digital video class. What we've done is I've come in and given lectures on different aspects of production just to bring the level of what they've done higher. So for instance, we've done lighting where, a student might go out and film an interview, but there's a lot more that you can do just with even a table lamp at home to make it look a lot better. Even with, sound techniques, there's certain ways that you can capture it, use different types of microphones, and that's what we've done. So I've worked with Mr. Lopresti, he's the teacher of the class, and the way that the lectures will probably go is that the students would work on something during the week, and then in that long period of time where we can actually break it down piece by piece and work on each individual part is where I would come in and assist with that. So that's what we'll keep continuing to do at the high school. And at the same time, we could start the same news program that we'd like to at the high school. We had talked about maybe doing a semester in review, so students would go out and film, different events that happen, and then once a semester, can get together, put the packages together, have sort of a news anchor that would really bring it all together to show to the parents. And that, again, can be live. In our name, there is an education part to it, and one of our channels is actually dedicated to education. So that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that we can fill with any programs that the students produce. So it's a real big opportunity for students to actually get a hands-on experience and start building a demo reel for when they go to college, which is, essential now, and especially when you go to apply for a job. I still use a lot of clips that I had when I started volunteering at Milton Access when I was in middle school. So those are very helpful. And the last thing on this list is we are offering internships. This would be more for the college level, or if a student is graduating in the summer and wants to go into video production and maybe just wants to get a feel for the field before they go off. We're going to offer 3 different types of internships, and we really are a media facility where it's not just about video production. We have a typical news internship where students could go out and film a story and bring it back and create a whole package. There's also an archiving internship where we have so many different types of media now, and they're really, media changes daily, so a form of media that you used yesterday might be out of date tomorrow. So it's really trying to get on top of archiving what we have and going forward, how we're going to archive it better in the future. A lot of people just think a DVD. A DVD has a shelf life of 5 years. After that, there's really you don't know if it's going to play or not. So that's something that we would like to work on too. We have a website, so we have a website internship where students can come in and learn, graphic design, website design, and that way they'd even have, something to put into their portfolio that says, this is something I actually, did work on. So those are some of the ideas that we have. We haven't had the studio in 10 years, so it's probably going to be a little bit of a learning process at first, but I think that we're ready to hit the ground running and come September. I know that there's a lot of teachers at the Pierce that they've heard the hammers going and the screw guns, and they're very, very interested in it. Students walk by every day and see the door, and they're looking through, so we're very excited to have it open. Our studio will be back open in middle of July, and we plan on having a grand opening, an open house sometime in August that we'll publicize through our station.
Any questions for Mr. Walker?
Well, it sounds like some great opportunities, and this is a question maybe for Mike or for John and Mary. What would it take for the middle school and high school courses to be credited or offered for credit?
First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Lynch, Mr. Gordon, and Dr. Giuliano. 2 years ago, Dr. Dorada was very involved with you in anticipating this opening and began to realign the business and technology department at the high school to start to offer some courses, digital video, advanced digital video, tech essentials. So I believe that the hope is that we are able to continue to partner with the cable folks to offer these types of things for credit as we do now, but actually enhance those courses and add to those courses as we go along. At the middle school, I believe time will tell whether or not we could actually go from having these type of experiences from a club opportunity to actually an elective course during the day. As Dr. Dorada saw 2 years ago, he realigned the department, didn't add any staff, but he took existing business and technology and computer staff and asked them to go out and educate themselves as to the type of work that they'll be doing now. And Dr. Spalding maybe will start to explore that as the clubs start to take off next year. So we're very excited on the school side to be able to offer these opportunities to our students during school, before school, and after school.
Great. One more.
Go ahead.
How would the interns be selected?
We've had the intern program in the past where we've publicized it and they apply, and we really try not to turn anyone down.
Great.
Bagley Jones.
I know you mentioned the cost before in terms of it not costing, can you tell us again where that comes from to cover the costs of these programs?
Good question. On your cable bill, you pay a couple bucks on each month to, the money goes to the town, and then the town has to spend it on communications, things, so they send us a check. We get, I think the last check, we get it quarterly. It was like about 84,000, so we get about 84,000 quarterly. But because Comcast is selling more services to more people in the town, the viewership of the Comcast people are going up, and RCN is going down. So I think they forecasted that we might get 90,000 for the next quarter.
Can I just follow up?
Go right ahead.
So in other words, the school department is not paying a penny
No.
for this? I just
No.
want to clarify that
You're
again
paying
and
for it.
again. I'm paying for it with my Comcast, yes. And then for the internships, are they paid internships, or are they community service hours, or are they just to get the experience on your resume? I think they're great, I'm just curious.
They're both. We offer, for right now, for any high schooler that wants to come in and volunteer, we do community service for it. We had one intern from Kari last year, and she took it for credit. We are looking at stipends more for the internship, especially for a news program where, you know, we would assign a story. You obviously have to go out and drive your car and get to it. So we are working on that. They're for both right now.
Can I ask one more question? And then I know you want to use the college folks, the college kids for the internships, but if there's a way to open that up to some of the seniors, I'm sure you're familiar with our senior who just graduated, Lucas Shapiro, you know, who is on ESPN, he has his own blog, he has his own, all these things that he did, that he's really gifted. He would have been a great intern to have, but he was a senior. So is there a way to open it up from the college level to an aspiring senior, maybe?
Yeah, and you know, we offer the internship in general. Where we're starting it out, it's probably going to take that course where we can offer it to high schoolers, especially, you know, if I'm involved with the classroom on a day-to-day basis for those kids that are, I think now there's actually two strands of the class. There's a basic and an advanced. So we'd be looking for those advanced kids that could, you know, add to their experience. And I had already talked to Mr. Lopresti about this, where he could actually maybe assign, you know, kids to cover a story as part of, you know, like their homework on a week, which would also double, you know, serving us too, so.
Excellent, thank you, it's great.
Mr. Walker.
This is just a message for Comcast. For the amount that I'm paying each month, your studio should look like NBC.
Well, I remember being in the old studio, in fact, with Bernie on the stage, where there were 2 folding chairs and 3 if you were lucky, and you didn't move too much or you'd fall off. It was an interesting old studio there, very dark and
We haven't bought the furniture yet, Glenn. Maybe you might want to contribute to it.
Mr. Pavlicek,
We have no furniture.
if I
Well,
might.
we're looking at that now.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that the win-win for the school system is going to be, the school system is going to be open up for the community.
Yes.
And so for us to be able to feature and put out to the public all the things that are happening, the unbelievable educational opportunities at Milton High School, out on the cable channel, it's just going to open up a new world. You refer to the old cable station, that was alive with students. They were in and out all the time, but as Ms. Bagley-Jones said, to take a Lucas Shapiro and be able to give him those hundreds of those kind of students, those opportunities right in their school is a very, very exciting option. So we are thrilled. Mr. Lopresti's looking forward to the partnership. The administration is supportive, and we're glad that you chose the Milton Public Schools to create these two studios. We promise to keep them alive, and to speak to Mr. Lynch's partnership with us. You have extended yourself and really integrated yourself into the faculty, and I appreciate it.
Mr. Walker.
Just one more. Is there a way on Channel 8 that you could make it so that when you pull up the channel guide, you actually see the programming so that I can tape it?
It's funny you should ask that. So there's a couple different things when you think about it, but when you hit guide on your clicker,
Yeah.
and Channel 8, it probably just says local programming.
Right. Yep.
That is the same anywhere in the state for any local programming. It's actually something, we belong to a chapter called Mass Access. It's like the fraternity of local centers. That's what's on the plate right now currently, is being able to update your program guide. There are, I guess the program that they use on the computer that Comcast has is locked up so tight that no one can adapt to it. We are, our program guide will improve. We're also starting, in a few weeks, we'll be advertising in the paper, in the Milton Times, so that will be, every week you'll be able to see it, and we also do it on our website too, so you can check that any time of the day.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Great. I have one more thing to say.
Go right ahead.
I always refer to Miss Bagley-Jones wanted me to have an email blast, and so we have twice a month, an email blast, and because of the partnership with Mr. Lynch, Mr. Lopresti and the students have turned the email blast into a video blast. And it just took them so much time, the students, but they interviewed the individuals who would have been interviewed by us and their articles put in print. But I believe it was your partnership with Mr. Lopresti and you coming into the class that really, to your reference, brought them to the next level. So I think that the options are endless, the career options, the hobbies, and again, opening up the Milton Public Schools to the entire community. We're looking forward to the partnership.
We could even have a superintendent's corner or a superintendent's update, so maybe we could have a
School
video
committee update.
and a print ad for the email
Right
blast
after
too.
the school committee one. Thank you.
Ms. Kelly.
There used to be a sports call-in show,
Yes.
and I'm wondering if the new studio would accommodate that type of a setup.
Yes, I think you're referring to Sports Etc. Our host is still with us. He's on our board. He's a longstanding board member, Bruce Pearson. He has been planning to come back ever since we started the construction, and we are built in for a live call-in as well. So we had to buy the technology that there'll be a delay in the phone line so we can screen the calls, but we will have that feature back.
Because we can shut off swear words.
There are many activities going on in the schools, sporting events and plays and so forth, and anything that you would like to put on the cable, you wouldn't want to have at the same time that the event is going on, because you want the people to go and support the programs, but we can show them later, basketball games, football games, theaters, whatever we can do legally, we would love to have that. On your website, you have a school website now. Maybe there's some of the things that you're putting on the school website you might want to share directly with the community through the Milton Cable.
The options are going to be endless.
Yeah.
It's great.
Thank you very much. We will take your request on the extending the lease. I'm going to send it to our finance subcommittee, and we'll try to get that
Thank you, Mr.
underway.
Gordon, Dr. Giuliano, Mr. Lynch.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Walker had asked for an alcohol drug prevention presentation, and Mr. Phelan, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Personnel, worked with staff within the schools on this presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Gormley. I'd like to thank Steve Traster and the Wellness Department for their input and support as we developed this PowerPoint. The request was to demonstrate how we as a school system are supporting our students and educating our students in essentially how do we decrease high-risk behavior. One of the things we want to do is increase the amount of education and knowledge and understanding of our students as they go through our school system to graduate as healthy-minded and healthy-bodied students. So we'll go over the mission statement that is in our high school's program of studies. We'll go over the staffing. We'll talk about how much health and PE we have in the Milton Public Schools at each level, and specifically how much health we have at each level. And we'll talk about the realignment that we're looking to do through this summer with curriculum work with our wellness department, and then some general wellness activities and initiatives that we have throughout the district, mainly through our wellness committee that has been established by the school committee and Kristen Bagley-Jones in a well-rounded group that meets monthly on Friday mornings. So I start with what is in our high school program of studies. The Milton Public Schools will graduate and a graduate will demonstrate an awareness and an ability to practice health-enhancing behaviors as part of a student expectations for learning. This is part of our expectations for all of our graduating seniors and as they come through the Milton Public Schools. When we talk about how we implement our health and PE, we have to talk about how many staff that we have at each level to do this work, because it does limit the amount of options that we have. At the elementary school, we have 2.2 FTEs, and I want to define FTE, that's full-time equivalent. So essentially, that's 2 teachers and an additional one day of a teacher. That's a part-time teacher. So 2.2 means 2 teachers and a part-time teacher. Those 2.2 teachers are split between all 4 elementary schools. And we also have a service that we provide our students on some IEPs that call for adaptive physical education. So essentially, we have 2.3 FTEs worth of physical education at the elementary level for all 4 schools. At the Pierce Middle School, we have 3.0 FTEs, that's 3 teachers. We provide 2 physical education teachers and 1 health teacher, and we have a part-time person doing adaptive physical education. Again, this is driven by the students that we have on IEPs, and that's a different type of phys ed class for those students. At the high school, we have 4 physical education teachers, and we have a part-time person who does adaptive PE for our IEP students. The PE and health at the high school is done by both physical education teachers and health teachers. They mix that program, and I'll get into how that works in the next slide. How is health and PE offered at each school? Well, at the elementaries, we only have 30 minutes per week. We don't have health. At the middle school, we have 40 minutes of PE every other day. As middle school parents know, the world of middle school means a day 1 and a day 2. So you have a certain schedule on a day 1, and then the next day is a day 2, you have a different schedule. So essentially, your elective classes or your specials are done on an every other day basis, and almost all of our students get PE every other day for the entire year. We have health provided to students in a health class by a separate teacher for a quarter or a half year at each one of the grades. Not every child gets health in each grade that they have through the middle school. At the high school, all 4 teachers teach PE and health. So a PE teacher or a student at the high school has PE/health for a half of year every day, and then they do not have that elective for the second half of the year. Health is taught as a unit throughout that two-semester or that two-quarter term each half year, and there are 2 units per semester. So when you look at the experience, our students get a limited amount of health at the high school level, and every student does take physical education and health at the high school. What is the health curriculum? At the elementary level, right now, we don't have any health at this time. Through the work of the Wellness Committee and the discussions that we've had over the last 2 years, next year we will be piloting the Great Body Shop with our classroom teachers in one of our schools, and we believe it's going to be 3rd or 4th grade. We have priced out the materials, looked for donations for materials through some of the contacts that we have in our Wellness Committee, and we would like to see that after 1 year be part of what we offer at least 1 grade in every elementary school, if not 2. The health curriculum at the middle school goes by grade, and you can see that we are introducing at the 6th grade body systems, mental and emotional health, reproduction, nutrition, and exercise. To the 7th grade, mental health, legal and illegal drugs, alcohol effects. We do first aid and CPR. Students are first aid and CPR certified by Ms. Quealy at our middle school courses. And by 8th grade, we move up to STIs, disease awareness, drug and alcohol, mental health, and healthy relationships at the 8th grade. At the high school, the 9th and 10th graders will have units of study in alcohol, tobacco, violence prevention, conflict resolution, CPR, nutrition. In the 11th, 12th, legal drugs, illegal drugs, STIs, first aid, and mental health. We are very much reviewing the articulation of those health topics to ensure that we're actually hitting the students at the best age for each type of topic, as exampled by should we really be asking and talking about illegal drugs at an earlier age. So we have tasked our middle school and high school wellness teachers to realign the curriculum and map out that curriculum for next year, factor in the age and the grade risk levels that we have very much been aware of in looking at our students and wanting to give them more exposure to and education on the dangers of and choices that they have, and increase the good decisions that they make through education and awareness of the concerns around drugs, alcohol, prescription drugs, non-prescription drugs, et cetera. So we will work to align that curriculum over the summer and be prepared to pilot that this school year, the 2012-13 school year. Aside from the curriculum that we offer, that is limited, we also want to say out loud that we have a wellness committee that meets monthly. Member Kristen Bagley-Jones and Superintendent Gormley chair that committee. It is a very productive and purposeful committee. We have had mental health presentations, World Wide Web and media presentations to parents. Next year, we'll have Chris Herron, who is a national speaker, speak to the high school. We've had a depression initiative at the high school. We got the Great Body Shop through this program. Dr. Knight, who we work with around the spring for our high school students to make good choices around prom and graduation. We've brought in CATS. Todd Deschamps, a local resident, owns a wellness program out of Hingham. He is out on the field right now with a group of athletes, working with our student athletes at the high school all summer and at our elementary schools during lunch. We work with the Hope House, which brings in people to have guest speakers at our high school. So what we try to do is supplement our awareness and our educational opportunities around drug and alcohol awareness for our adolescents and post-adolescents in different ways throughout the year. We believe that as many experiences as we can bring to them that are real life in nature to our parents and our students go a long way. We are also part, and we believe that making good choices, healthy choices, is also a part of our school lunch program. And we also work with the Norfolk County DA with students at risk as well. What we decide on each year when we look at decreasing high-risk behaviors, how can we redesign the curriculum? How can we involve our guidance counselors, our adjustment counselors, our teachers in the alternative program, the pilot programs that we have for next year? And, quite frankly, decreasing high-risk behavior means engaging all students during school and after school. And the amount of clubs and activities that we offer, both at the middle and high school, at those critical times, which is the after-school and evening time, are essential to have students buy into being a member of the school community, decreasing the options of having access or taking part in maybe some bad decisions. So we hope that if we increase the education around those choices, around drugs, alcohol, and good choices to high risk, to avoiding high-risk behavior, and then take up that time with healthy choices through clubs and activity and athletics, that we feel we will provide students good options and keep them in a positive light. So we feel at this point in time we do a pretty good job. I think that if I could anticipate some concerns, is that we could probably use more health and wellness staff to then provide more health and wellness, especially at the middle school, where our students are being faced with these decisions that have been kind of trickling down from high school to middle school, and wanting to make sure that they get that education and information as early as possible to really get the facts on these tough choices that they'll be looking at as they go through later in middle school and in high school. So if you have any questions about the programs, about the curriculum, I'll be glad to answer them.
Hey, Mr. Walker.
So, John, I appreciate this information. It does confirm that we have some programs that touch on these issues. And just to provide some context, my request and my question, which I'll restate again in a minute, was precipitated by the superintendent providing some information that we had lost yet another former Milton Public School student to a drug overdose. And the question was, are we doing everything we possibly can to discourage underage drinking and drug abuse? So I think, and here as well, I think you touched on some of the things that I think are critically important. One was providing real-life experiences. Another, as you alluded to, was getting to students as early as possible. So the question with this specific information is I'm not sure I understand what the strategy is for getting to students very early on, because middle school, high school, I can make the case that probably late middle school, high school, it may be a little too late to start to certainly mold them. They've already made some decisions about those kinds of things. So maybe elementary school, early middle school, do we have some real targeted strategies there? Because my sense is that if I look at these curricula, that while we talk about legal and illegal drugs and alcohol effects, if I look at all the things you're trying to get to there, my sense is that we probably are not able to provide a real focus there. So, just, can you give me a sense of how that comes together?
I would like to say that if we could provide more, a better articulated curriculum for our health program, which would require more staffing, that students just got health and we ensure that every student got health. It would be great to start in 5th grade, because I think you're starting to see some behaviors, quite frankly, or some experiences that parents and students are facing in 5th grade. But I think the first and foremost tool against drug and alcohol and/or bad choices or high-risk behavior is education. I think teachers talking to kids about facts, about the real impact in the real words and the terms, not don't do those things, you better stay away from those things. Don't do drugs, prescription drugs, things that are in your cabinet are real drugs. Don't smoke marijuana. be very, very upfront and very clear and specific. So I think education is the best tool, and I think early middle school, if not 5th grade, is the best place to start. The horse is out of the barn in 8th grade and 9th grade in terms of students already being faced with choices and also needing information to make decisions when they are confronted with it in the community during the summer, on the weekend, or somewhere else. Secondly, I feel that our alternative education, our counselors and our adjustment counselors do an incredible job with students who eventually do take part in some activity and come to school and identify, or we identify, and then we actually get involved with them in school and out of school with supporting them and their families. I had a student in my office who graduated 2 years ago this morning at 7:30 a.m. to see me and thank the Milton High staff for what they have done for him in this area. So there are a lot of there are good staff, hardworking staff that identify and work with students and families. I think the middle piece, as we look at what we can do for students and families, is really parental education and accountability and responsibility as well. At the middle school, really letting parents know, especially maybe of first time, if it's their oldest child, these are some of the things that students will be faced with. These are some of the choices that they'll be looking at and the experiences that they may have, and here's the type of dialogue that you should be having at home and that we're trying to encourage in school, and being a part of that process as well. I feel that the parents in the school need to partner and have consistent conversations and expectations for children around these choices as well. So how do we impact that as a school system? I think we need more staffing. We don't have the staffing at the elementary level to provide that type of wellness or health curriculum at this point in time. And at the middle school, we have attempted to rearrange and have one teacher totally dedicated to health, and I think that that does a good job, but I think that we could provide more of it if it was, financially feasible.
Just one follow-up.
Go ahead.
Just one follow-up. Couldn't agree more on the importance of the parent-school staff partnership. And I think what would seem to be one low-cost alternative could be programs where they hear from peers. 'Cause I think it's probably more powerful to hear from peers at that age and the consequences of some bad choices they've made than it is to hear from parents or teachers. Not that I think they should be getting it from all quarters, but I think sometimes hearing from peers who I think they may be able to relate to a little more easily.
The Hope House initiative that comes out to the high school are adolescents, 16 to 20-year-olds who are involved in programs that come to speak as part of their program. So that's one attempt. It's limited, but it's one attempt to put peers in front of peers.
Ms. Bagley-Jones.
I have a couple of things, of course. I mean, this is, a real strong interest of mine, but one of the things, I agree totally with John. In fact, I've been pushing this around more health educators, but I have a story about that. I was talking to a parent who said a group of kids were going down for like a senior week to Cape Cod, and that the kids had a meeting where they discussed house rules, and one of them was no tobacco in the house. And I was like, oh, that's great. And they said because they remembered in grade 9 or grade 8, when they showed the rotten lung, they remembered what tobacco did to their lungs. So I said, well, what'd they say about alcohol? And the mom said, oh, they didn't talk about the alcohol. But I thought, well, that's some progress. They talked about not allowing tobacco in the house, and they specifically remembered in grade 8 or 9 seeing the rotten lung, and that was the reason why. So I do think more health education that's consistent and throughout every grade is really important, because and Dr. Knight talked about helping us with the curriculum in grade 9 to show kids pictures of their brains impacted by substance abuse, because he said that's what the research shows, is that the hands-on stuff, the lecturing from parents or teachers doesn't help with kids. It's the peers and it's the hands-on activities that really make a difference for kids getting it. So I do think we need more health education. The Great Body Shop is attempt to bring a curriculum in that, by the way, teachers will have to take on to do, because we don't have health educators in the elementary schools, that talks from a developmental perspective about good physical, mental, emotional health in a developmentally appropriate way for kindergarten through grade 5. So we are trying to begin earlier, and it is another task that teachers will have to take on, but, you know, it's really important. So I think those are a couple things about health education, but if I can just keep going. The thing about intervention is that I would say it's accepted out there in the real world, there is no one way to solve this problem. So that's why it's piecemeal. It's a lack of money, right? I mean, if we had all the money in the world, we could do more, but it still wouldn't be enough because there's not one way, like, you know, cancer, there's not one way to solve and stop substance abuse among our youth. And there's a lot of research out there about this, but so it is piecemeal, and that's sort of what we're doing, but that's okay. If we could get more early identification in of the issues, right, for kids in elementary, but if we could also get more early identification of kids by middle school, by 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, we have to know more about what kids are doing and how they're doing it and where they're doing it, and then continue it up to where the kids who need that specific intervention, you know, the kids who are going that way. But I think we miss a lot of kids here and everywhere else that are at-risk kids. I've said this to Mary and John repeatedly. I think the kids who are disengaged, disenfranchised, we're missing them. And not just in Milton, but everywhere. Until I have a lot of strong feelings about this. And I think we do a good job with our adjustment counselors and our staff to find these kids and to help these kids, but I think we need to do a better job because of the tragedies that our community and other communities have experienced. So it's a long-winded way of just saying we need more health educators, but we need to also support earlier integration of these issues into our curriculum. And I think we're going there, but we have a ways to go. I don't know if that made sense. I sort of just rambled, but we've been talking about this a lot in health and wellness, and a lot of people have devoted a lot of time to us thinking about it, and it's such a valuable topic, so.
I think it's really important for parents to, I think from a children's perspective, if you can give them the information, they'll make good choices. We have good kids in our school system, and they'll make good choices if they have good information in front of them. And then we have to give them stuff to do. Then we have to provide them good opportunities and good healthy choices. And I believe in the after-school program that we have at the Pierce, in all the sports and clubs and activities. So if I was a first-time 9th grade parent, my suggestion would be have your child play a sport every single season. Join 3 clubs. Even if they're not the best athlete, go to music. There's a marching band now at the high school. I mean, there is stuff to do. And we did an informal poll about 2 years ago for our work with CDM, and our high school students were saying to us that the ones that were plugged into an activity were plugged into school. And so in the end, we're about student achievement, but part of that student achievement is keeping students engaged, healthy, active, and engaged in school. And so all of these pieces fit together as part of what we do. And so encouraging students to take advantage of these opportunities and provide as many and a variety of opportunities for students to take advantage of, so they have somewhere to go after school, so they have a commitment on Saturday morning to go to, which is a hockey practice or a football practice, or be at the band concert on a Thursday night. And so I think that all of these pieces add to providing good opportunities, and if we educate students to the concerns and the facts of all these options that they have, but it's work that we take very seriously. We know it's part of the whole student approach to what we want to do for our students, and a little more staffing would help, but I think that we're putting together a good response for our school community, given the budget constraints that we have had over the years.
Ms. Bagley-Jones.
Sorry, I don't mean to belabor the point, but a couple years ago at one of our events, some clergy members approached me and said, oh, you know, we'd really like to be involved and be supportive, maybe have some open events for middle school kids. And I was like, that's great, but pulling it all together, you know, is a lot of work. But that's one group that we haven't tapped into as much as we could. I mean, they're willing to help us. We just have to find a way to do that. I also have brought up, and we've all talked about this, opening the gym more to our students, even though that brings a whole other level of supervision. But there is nowhere for kids to go. And so some people have said back to me, well, then they'll just go to the woods at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, well, you know what? We kept them out of the woods for 3 hours, and so maybe they'll drink less or whatever. I don't know, but there's not a whole lot for kids to do after hours in Milton, and I just think anything we could do to sort of help with that. I also think there's an initiative coming down the pike that by 2017, all school districts are going to have another unfunded mandate around mental health services. And so I think mental health issues are a big reason why some kids use substances. Why a lot of people use substances. So I think that the more we can look at mental health issues as well, I think that would be helpful too. And it's coming down the pike anyway. We'll have no choice to do that by 2017, which is still a couple of years away. And I do think there's more we could do, not a lot more, but there's more we could do. And how do we get the community, the police? Police have been great with talking to us and to kids, parents, the clergy, everybody together to sort of pull something more to get. It's not just on the schools is what I'm trying to say. We've got to get other people to help us with this. And I think they're willing.
Ms. Kelly?
To that point, back when I was growing up in this town, there was a youth committee, I think it was appointed by the Board of Selectmen, who worked on those types of issues where they coordinated across many different groups to try and coordinate activities for kids. Something like that is worth pursuing again, I think. I definitely agree. Trying to find ways to involve kids for as long as we can is the best thing we can do for them. I do want to go back to sort of the distribution of PE and health staffing. I almost look like we again seem to have an imbalance. The elementary has about 1,950 kids, and yet they have 2.3 FTEs of phys ed. Pierce has 850, and they have 3.2, and the high school has 980, and they have 4.2. Additionally, what's the time for the high school PE?
They do one period a day for half a year, so that's a 47-minute class every day for half a year, which basically comes out to an every other day phys ed experience, so 90 days of phys ed.
Right, and I guess that in itself, I think we've talked about this table before, just doesn't make any sense to me, and I understand the whole we have semesters, but physical activity and getting health education shouldn't just be for half a year. It should be spread out over the year, and I don't know what we need to do to sort of revisit the whole scheduling at the high school to try and accommodate that, but I think it would be in the best interest of kids. Additionally, coupling it with those, other schools that have, whose kids are in sports, they don't have to take the PE component of PE/health. Looking at those kinds of alternatives that may free up some resources perhaps at the high school to be able to put down to the elementary, which is in dire needs, it looks like. The other thing I wanted to ask was, I thought at some point we did have an elementary health curriculum, and as we've sort of whittled away at positions, that's gone away. So I guess my question is, do we have a curriculum at the elementary level? And is it that we just don't have the time, or we don't divide the time to be able to present it? I'm a little baffled as to why we don't have a health curriculum at the elementary.
Right now, the desire to get the students up and moving once a week was the preference with the reduction in staff a few years back. So there probably was a curriculum at the elementary level, just as there was a different curriculum at the middle school, but as the staff got reduced, you could only cover so much, so they had to adapt and realign with how many periods of health they would get throughout their tenure at Pierce. So it would be very easy if we had staffing to get a elementary curriculum, and we could find out what was age appropriate at each grade, and we could review what we had and probably want to review what was updated in more cutting edge in terms of the 2012-13 version of what good health would mean, or good choices in terms of what a fifth grader should know. There are fifth graders that have phones. There are fifth graders that, health isn't just Jackie Morgan going into the schools and talking about good eating, which she has done this year. But I think that it's really about good students being aware of what type of choices they're making around the internet, around phones, around relationships, around food, around exercise, around what they eat, what they do. All those choices, I think, are worthy conversations and worthy topics for, quote, wellness or health. And so if we were to be able to provide it, we would absolutely research what a curriculum would look like and what was age appropriate, and depending on what and how we would start it, by what grade and how we would offer it, we'd have to find out what was age appropriate for each curriculum.
Can I add to that? The point of the Great Body Shop is that the teachers can actually teach the curriculum versus before the curriculum, my understanding, was taught by health educators.
Correct.
So that's why the Great Body Shop was we were attracted to, because the teachers can do it.
Right, and I guess I would ask the question, we have so much on our teachers'
agree.
plates right now.
I agree.
I don't know how we put
I
it on
agree.
their plate as well, and I think the
I agree.
more constructive way to do this is to figure out a way to get another resource at the elementary level, so that there would be a dedicated resource to be able to
I agree.
deliver that curriculum.
I agree. It was just to try to get something in there on a pilot program to see, but I completely agree, we need more resources at the elementary. And then the other thing about the athletes, because we talked about that, could we get the athletes out of PE so we could open up some spaces? And the feedback was, one, we need some coverage in the schedule, and I'm not exactly sure of the details on that, for planning and development periods for the teachers, so we need X amount of blocks anyway. And then if a kid doesn't make the team after freshman year, sometimes you don't make the team, so then what do? And not all students play sports 3 times a year or 2 times a year, might just play once a year. Then do you match up their schedule with when they're on a team or not on a team? But I agree. I mean, if you're doing sports 3 times a year, you're exercising every day. You don't need to be in PE. But the logistics of it would really need to be looked at.
Right, I think you need the health component of it. I mean, I
Absolutely.
think that's what we're looking to get.
Yep.
But I think it calls for us to be really creative with the high school schedule. And I think, I certainly have been talking about this for many years. I think, I don't know where it comes in our planning, but I would hope that it would be put on the plate fairly soon, because I think there's opportunities there.
Mr. Walker?
So just as a follow-up, I want to make sure that there's a lot to talk about here, and we've made this a health and phys ed discussion, and there's a lot of complicated issues there. But as follow-up, here's what I would ask for at our July meeting. You mentioned, Mr. Phelan, that you're working on some things over the summer that you think could have a positive impact. So what are the 2 or 3 things that we're doing with the current resources we have that we think will have a positive impact on educating students more effectively on underage drinking and drug abuse?
I can tell you that right now. We are realigning when we cover certain topics and pushing that information down. So if you noticed in the, for example, we have illegal drugs here in 11th and 12th grade. That should be down, and all 9th and 10th graders should get that. And we'll have to move a unit, and so we'll realign what we feel are things that students should have earlier. At the middle school level, we want to see exactly where we're addressing those drug and alcohol, prescription drug conversations, and make sure that we feel that they're hitting the students at the best time at their middle school grade. So when we talk about realigning, it's looking at that 6 to 12 conversation. When should our students have this? The problem is that they really need a lot of this stuff all the time.
Right.
And so in specifics, so when I believe that it's just as important to talk about mental health and body systems in CPR. And so these are all really important topics. Physical education and health and wellness is a really important experience that our students should have, and all these topics are very important. You can't be a good student unless you're feeling good about yourself, that you're exercising and that you're eating right. You're getting all these decisions that you're starting to face as a young adolescent. So our goal is to realign these, so at least the topics that we cover them well. We have them lined up in an order in which we feel that we hit the students with the information before they're faced with those challenges and options, so they have information when they're facing them. So the primary work that we're doing this summer is to realign the curriculum so that we can provide that experience. Second to that, with Dr. Knight's help and with Marilyn Decker, our science director's help, we're also looking at where we can address some of these things in science, because some of these topics are able to be covered in chemistry and in biology. So we're looking to try to do some cross-curricular work, so we don't have to touch on it as heavily, and we can actually share that responsibility from a curriculum standpoint with our science teachers. And so that work is being discussed, so there will be a science person available to our phys ed and wellness teachers over the summer, and Marilyn Decker is on board with that as well.
What about Chris Aaron?
I'm going to ask at some point to see how that all looks.
Okay.
Maybe it's not July, maybe it's August, but.
Okay.
Mr. Dara?
And you said you weren't going to speak?
I just couldn't stand it. I was just going to bring up the idea of, I'm a big fan of using peer leaders or peer educators, just because I think that they serve two purposes, which is, number one, they can educate faculty and staff about what's going on, what's new, because it's not always the same thing as you brought up, like prescription drugs, things I had never thought of that they would educate us about. But in addition to that, they're under some supervision from a faculty member or guidance counselor. You educate them, and then they go back into the population and educate their peers, because some of the information they have or they think is correct is not always correct. So I think, and they could also serve the purpose of going to the elementary schools, because that's something that all kids kind of love, is feeling that they have more information and sharing and teaching even younger kids about some of the things that they've learned and know. So that's something to think about. I don't know, there might already be something like that there. And then the second thing, I do agree with the parent education, and I don't know if, like I said, what you already do in terms of programs for parents, but it's really important, especially, as you said, for a new parent, what to look for and what to do if they see certain things in their child, because really, you know, it's another set of eyes for you to point out the problem kids that might be just right on the edge, and they're starting to see some things and they're not sure if it's, you know, they talk to their friends who might say that's, oh, I have that too, or, but it might be really concerning if they talk to the right person early on enough. They'll get some help, and that child will be targeted for help too. So those are just two things.
We do have a student leader program at the high school. Dr. Drotta put it in place about 5 years ago. It's a great program. Students have to apply to be on it. They have to petition and write an essay, and they have to be blessed by a teacher. Teachers have to sign off on it to show that they are of good character and someone that has leadership capacity, which is great. And I believe after Rachel's challenge that the middle school does have a leadership component to it as well through the Rachel's challenge piece around the bullying prevention. So I also believe that older students speaking to younger students is the best medicine, and they look up to the students, and so that's a big piece that we can utilize our own student body for our youngest students as well.
Bagley Jones.
If I can just address the parent education piece, because I do think that's really important. On the other hand, we have offered evenings for high school, middle school parents, had very low turnout. The middle school has done a great job with having Joni Geltz, is that her name? Who's a parent, how do you say her name? Geltman, who's a parent educator, who's really good and talks not just about substance abuse, but just in general. And I think they've had pretty good turnout. But those are 1 or 2 events a year, and it's the parents who are already interested. And I'm not being negative about parents at all, but if you're a parent whose kid is right on edge and you're not at the workshop, you're not going to get the information. So it's not, that's why schools, I think, can't just say it's all on the parents, and that's not what you're saying, and it can't be parents saying it's all on the school. But I don't know how we reach all the parents. We've offered events. The police chief came and talked. He was great. And I think in the high school auditorium, we were lucky if we had 75 parents out of the middle school and high school. 75 parents, I think we got. And we did good publicity, you know, so maybe we need to hear from parents how we can be helpful to them. Maybe it's not an evening, because if you're worried about your kid, maybe you're not going to go to a meeting that's about talking to your kid about substance abuse, because you don't want your neighbors to know that you're worried about it. I don't know what keeps parents from coming, but maybe we need to talk to parents more about what they want to get information on this. I don't know.
Ms. Kelly.
I think that's a great idea, but I also think sometimes when we just do 1 or 2 sessions, I think if you create sort of a similar to what the special education pack has created, where they have, what is it, one meeting a month where just parents come and they talk and roundtable and they get it all out there. And maybe the group isn't that big, but there are different people coming in every time because they know that it's a regular event. You know, something like that might be something to consider in terms of support for parents.
If I
Ms. Gormley.
a few notes. One, to Mrs. Kelly's point, now that NEASC is over, we are going to look at the high school schedule, and we have thought over the years, when we examine the budget in other districts, if you're on a sport, then you do not have to take physical education, but where we have a fee, there are regulations about that. So we'll follow up with our athletic director. This wellness committee, to Mrs. Kelly's point about a town-wide committee, it's very interesting, to Ms. Bagley-Jones' initiative. We have individuals, we have parents on the committee, Vicki McCarthy, who was, I believe, wasn't she, with the youth, who has a tremendous amount of information. This head nurse attends, guidance counselors, adjustment counselors, classroom teachers, the athletic director. As we sit back and look at it, it's the one committee that meets every month that has all of these different representative groups. Our school resource officer attends, and my impression of this group has been that these people, just like you asking questions, are looking for outlets themselves. They want to network. There's not one answer for all of these issues, and I've watched them leave these meetings invigorated. They have an organization to go to. When we had Rachel's Challenge, everyone brainstormed because it took none of the taxpayers' dollars. You remember that issue came up. Everybody brainstormed how to find the funding for this upcoming 2 events during the school year. We're all brainstorming rather than one lone adjustment counselor trying to find the funding for these events. So the wellness has, and I think that we could expand even more within the town, has brought all these different groups together, and they all find a voice. What are their issues? They put them on the table. So that wouldn't have happened without the school committee subcommittee, and Ms. Bagley-Jones initiating that. But we are going to look at the schedule now that NEASC is over, and I'll report back. I believe there's a part about having the athletics when you're in a team because we have fees, but I'll follow up on that. And to Mr. Phelan, again, to bring this all together, it's good for us to look at what we're doing and what are the short and long-term plans where we're going to go. And a final note, you may remember over the years, is it called the Risk Behavior Survey?
Risk Behavior Survey.
Risk Behavior Survey. So Milton's been involved. It's every 2 years, Ms. Bagley-Jones?
Yes, it's every 2 years, and Mary and I have had conversations going back and forth
So we're
about
going
this.
back to taking that youth risk behavior survey and using those results to really drive these kinds of conversations. Again, a positive result of having the Wellness Committee. And a final note, we've referred briefly to this Dr. Knight. Dr. John Knight is a Milton Public School parent who works out of Children's Hospital. And when he became involved with the school committee level 2 years ago, and he now is working, as Mr. Phelan said, to put 5 units into our 9th grade biology curriculum that are established units around health education and, again, high-risk behaviors. And the other day, we saw him here, meeting with the science department, deciding where these units should be integrated, and again, having buy-in by the teachers. And Dr. Knight also works with the high school with this survey that all high school parents was sent, the parents and the students were sent. So we have that partnership that's only getting stronger and stronger, integrating his expertise and his resources into the Milton Public Schools.
Did you say 5th grade or 9th grade?
9th grade, I might have missed, 9th grade biology.
If I can just follow up on that. Mary, you notice I did not bring up the data collection. Mary. Because can be a little controversial because you're asking kids to rate their at-risk behaviors, but everybody is doing it. It's not just Milton. So it's something that we've been going back and forth about, and I think it would be helpful, because it would answer your questions about what are kids doing and what do we need to do to intervene. So it's hard data to get, to look at, but it's important. And then the last thing I'll say is about Dr. Knight is that he started his research at Children's on adolescent substance abuse after one of his neighbor's children died, clearly with substance, it's not a secret, with substance abuse issues. I forget exactly how, and I don't mean to disrespect the young man who died, but he died via substance abuse issues, and that's what prompted Dr. Knight to start his research at Children's. So it's another sad story, but good things have come out of it. So,
In this youth risk behavior, to the point, data is valuable, and it will be valuable for parents, and it will be valuable for teachers and students also. Thank you, Mr. Phelan.
And just to sum up a little, too, this is also, it's obviously, as we're seeing from the community involvement, more than just a school issue. It wasn't too long ago, and I think it's about 12, 14 years ago now, this town used to have a youth department. It was a separate department in the town. Eventually, it got merged into other departments, and eventually into the police department, and eventually the positions more or less disappeared. So, this is an effort to resurrect, in a different form, obviously, something that we did have at one point, and it was alluded to earlier, that we used to have things that watched for kids with at-risk behavior, and people whose job was dedicated to doing precisely that. And so that void is something we're trying to fill in other ways now.
Thank you. Briefly, I'll just finish. Summer school has begun here at Milton High School, Milton Summer Enrichment, Monday through Friday. The program will be closed on July 4th and go through July 27th. The program is located here at Milton High School. As of today, 550 students are enrolled. If the public, parents, citizens have questions, they can contact Barbara Perry at 696-4470, extension 5108. And a reminder, the program will be closed on July 4th. Our special education extended year summer program is located at the Collycock Cunningham. We have a new director this year, Erin McCurtain, guidance counselor from the Pierce Middle School. That program will service 108 students and 30 more students for just services. That program this year is going to be run Monday through Thursdays. The program will begin next Monday. Our NEC program has already begun this week, and any questions can be directed to, I think, our special education office, and Karen Clasby will answer all questions. Again, a reminder about summer reading. If there are any questions, to go to the web, and the summer reading requirements, suggestions for each of the 3 levels can be found on the web. An update, yesterday and today, Mr. Phelan and I and the Cunningham parents, teachers, and administrators system-wide interviewed yesterday and today, and we have 3 finalists for parents of the Cunningham who are very interested. We have 3 outstanding finalists for the Cunningham principalship. They haven't been notified, so I can't make their names public tonight. We can as of tomorrow. We'll then bring the 3 finalists in for another round of interviews with our administrators. We had outstanding representation from parents, teachers. They both groups surveyed Cunningham parents. The teachers surveyed Cunningham teachers, and we're moving ahead with that appointment. Mr. Phelan is leading the search. We reopened for the elementary language arts social studies coordinator. Those interviews will be taking place tomorrow. And today, Mr. Jett led with Ms. Cruiser the screening all day for the new Milton High School math business department head, and I hope to have good news on that appointment for you. We've had outstanding pools of candidates this year, outstanding pools of qualified candidates with outstanding experience in education and in their educational background. So we're looking forward to those 3 last administrative appointments. Mr. Phelan and our administrative team has us really well situated for our staff hiring. We'll give you an update at the next meeting. I want to report out that you had charged me with communicating with all of our kindergarten parents if we were able to open another English strand at the Cunningham School. We only had replies from 2 parents, one Collycott parent, one Tucker parent, so we will not at this time be opening that additional first grade English strand at the Cunningham. But our plans, I spoke to 2 parents today who were very enthusiastic about it. This coming year, the 2 Cunningham first grades and the Cunningham first grade and the 2 Collycott English first grades will be integrated. And so we're moving ahead, communicating with parents on that. I've given you your green folder. And one last note in congratulations. Milton High School science teacher Tom Shaw is a coach at Ursuline Academy. Again, Dale Schneider is our very successful track coach. And so, again, looking for a head coaching position. Tom Shaw went to Ursuline Academy, and in last week's Globe, you may have seen that he was awarded Division IV Coach of the Year in girls track. So, again, we want to congratulate him. We had a wonderful email from Ursuline Academy congratulating and telling us what a wonderful addition he is after school there. We want to congratulate that staff member on that achievement. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to my report just briefly. First, I was derelict in opening the meeting when I was get the awards out from MASC that I neglected two items, actually, not even just one. First was to welcome Becky Padera as our newest school committee member, which I should have done at the opening. And the second is actually to ask if you would to observe a moment of silence in memory of Ann Coughlin, who, of course, was a great asset to this community and to Simmons College and to public education in general in Massachusetts for the last many years. Thank you very much. There was a lovely memorial service on Tuesday afternoon, and Ms. Gormley gave lovely reminiscences of Ms. Coughlin, as did others. It was very nicely done. A couple procedural matters. We have a presentation coming on the issue of some of the data collection surrounding the first grade English and French issues. And there was a question as to whether we want to bring that forward at our next meeting, which is scheduled for July 25th, or if that is something we would rather discuss in the fall as opposed to in the summer. I think it's been raised both ways, so I just put that out for discussion for a moment to see whether we want to. Is this something where the need to get it out, the information out is more pressing and needs to be done early, or is it, as has also been suggested, possibly fewer people are around in the summer to see some of that, and how should we proceed on that? I mean, we have a volunteer who is doing an immense amount of data aggregation on our behalf, and so at the same time, I don't want to push her for something that if we're going to put it off. At the same time, I don't want to put off something that could best be discussed early on. So any thoughts on that? Yeah, Ms. Beckman-Jones.
I think that it would be better to go ahead with whatever we have, because I think it's a continuing process. And I don't think we're going to get one chunk of data or one thing done, September 1st. I think it's going to be, we're going to hear some of this data, we're going to talk about it, we might need to do other things. And there are a lot of parents out there who are expecting us to do something different for September 1st, and I can't see putting off the data that will have until September. I don't know. I think we sort of have to go. I think we have to go ahead with whatever we have, because it's going to be a continuing process. That would be my thought.
Ms. Kelly.
I think we have to identify what it is we're going to do with the data. So if it's to inform how we're going to handle the 2014 class, I think that's the right year, right? Then I think we should put it off till the fall, when the majority of parents are home who are interested in this issue. If it's to make some changes for this upcoming, as we had a citizen speak individual about some of the class sizes, and as I'm looking at the class sizes, I'm amazed. If I'm reading this correctly, Glover has one class of 11 in English. Maybe there is something that needs to be done before then. So I guess it depends on, I guess, what the data says or what the administration would like to do. I don't know what you already have reached out to parents to ask them to change their minds about which program they would have their children in, and having what I think only 2 families volunteering for the move. At this point, I don't know what else can be done. I guess I would ask the administration if there is something that might be considered to try and bring some more balance to the English classes presently for this coming fall, before we get to sort of the longer-term discussion as to how to address both programs going forward.
Mr. Phelan's going to address that question, but just to clarify, the data presentation that we're working on is really for 13-14. So all of the data that we were looking at, IEP data, we had requests from school committee members, gender MCAS data, 504 data, that's all to drive 13-14. In relation to next year, Mr. Phelan, do you want to go over the initiatives that we've been?
Sure. We met as recently as Tuesday morning, to talk about enrolling students that are coming in June and July and August. Every year, we look at a chart and to see how many students have come into the district and at what month of the year. Last year, we enrolled approximately 152 students over the summer months, dispersed through K to 12. And so we hope and anticipate that when new students come in, we're able to assign them accordingly to what we feel to be enhance their classroom experience by having healthy class sizes in what would be right now some of the low class sizes we have in our grade 1 English classes. So we are aware of the dynamic in the short term of the 2012-13 year in terms of the low numbers in English. That was what prompted the conversation about the general or overarching concern about how we assign students and having the 2 programs that Superintendent Gormley just referred to. So for September of 2012, we're aware of the numbers. We will be awaiting to assign any new student, as we normally do, until mid to late August, because we like to see all the new students come in. And that allows us to assign them to classes and schools accordingly to get the best class size in each building. Sometimes that means not putting in students to make classes too big, and sometimes that means putting students in classes to make the class size a little higher, i.e. having our classes of 12 or 13 to go up to 16 or 17. And we do know at the early grades that over the years our class sizes will go up in the English program as students do move in. So in the short term, we're aware of some of the concerns around the low class size in grade 1, and we are strategically watching our enrollment through the summer, and we'll be looking at how those students are assigned for the 2012-13 school year.
Ms. Kelly?
Could we just go over what the class, I'm a little confused by this chart for Collicott and Cunningham first grades.
So this was part of the kindergarten presentation chart.
Yep.
So what I'd like to start with is the chart that was handed to you is a working draft that collects data on a lot of different things, and the only reason why it was put in this packet was for you to see the kindergarten numbers. So any numbers 1 through 5, and actually, if you notice, there's no high school numbers actually in it. This chart is populated by the secretaries in the guidance department at each level in each school, and it will become the official document as to how we see our student enrollment. But I don't want to say out loud that these numbers in grades 2, 3, 4, and 5, or even the middle school and high school are 100% accurate, because it wasn't given to you for that purpose tonight. I believe the first grade numbers are fairly accurate, though, Member Kelly. So as we presented and as we discussed regarding the student assignment for next year in grade 1, we did have the majority of our students choose in the French program, which left some of our grade 1 numbers low in English in some of our schools. It is for you to look at, if you were going to look at the Collycott School as an example, as Superintendent Gormley referred to, we're taking the 1 strand of English in grade 1 at the Cunningham and the 2 strands at the Collycott, and we're combining those three classes into 3 groups of students. But for the purposes of how we identify them, Mary Kelly, it only looks like there's 7 students in an English class in Cunningham, but those are the 7 students that actually are combined with the 14. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the names Burke, Aarons, and Moonen. That's the total of students that they'll have in their classrooms.
Oh.
But we're still representing them by school for MCAS purposes and SACIT purposes, et cetera. And if you notice, why would you have an 18, a 15, and a 21? We keep some of the classes lower because we know that there's going to be inclusion students in the programs at Cunningham and Collycott into those classes. So we anticipate when the inclusion is happening that those class sizes will be higher based on our special education numbers in that grade in those schools. But again, this is a work-in-progress document. It was mainly provided to you for the kindergarten numbers and to inform the memo that was written to Superintendent Gormley by myself in regards to a possible full-day kindergarten class being added for next year.
2 questions. That helps with the Collycott Cunningham, and I know we're not talking about this tonight, but I'd be curious to hear later on thoughts about Glover in terms of what we can do to help with that. And then, I should know this, but I can't remember. Did we cap French immersion? Yes. So anybody moving into town now cannot go into French immersion.
Correct.
So if we got 100 more students, they'd have to go into English.
That's correct.
I thought that's what we did, but I
That's
just
what we
wanted
did.
to say
Yep.
that again.
Mhm.
Okay. So new students have to go into English at this point.
That's correct.
And so, speaking, if I might,
Go ahead.
to the issue that was raised today, I believe within the next 2 weeks, revisiting these numbers with the numbers that we have enrolling over the summer, that these numbers will change. Again, we look at caps of 22 at grade 1. We're looking at numbers with the inclusion at the Collycott Cunningham that are getting their capped, our Tucker numbers, so that we're looking to increase the numbers at the Glover, Miss Kelly, picking up those low-class sizes in the 1 English and then the co-taught. So I believe in the next week, within the next 2 weeks, we're going to have much better indicators on what these numbers will be as we get closer to the school year beginning.
All right, well, back to my point, we have a couple of things that are on our plate for this summer. One is whether or not we're going to do this particular presentation. One is we are going to have a presentation on, as was mentioned earlier, the issue of common planning time at the high school in response to the NEASC. We have a proposal on how to address some of that for teachers involving a minor alteration of the schedule of the high school. That should come to us this summer. And we also have our retreat meeting at some point, as the administration is having their retreat meeting. So we have a couple of different issues. I mean, tentatively, we had set aside July 25th as a potential meeting date, because that was one where people could attend. The proposal for looking at common planning time at the high school, the people involved with that at the high school would be available on August 8th, which is 2 weeks later. So that's probably the first time you've heard that date, but I mean, we're looking at potentially those 2 dates as meeting dates, and we still have to deal with the issue of a retreat meeting. So I'm wondering if we can, first off, if those meeting, we floated July 25th before, but if August 8th is a possibility for people, we should hold sort of those two dates for one or more of these events, whether they'll both be open, televised meetings, or whether one will be a non-televised retreat, or, how we intend to look at that, or if in fact they both need to be regular meetings and we have to schedule a retreat at some point in the summer, we'll have to work that out. But we have to get that in place. But I'd ask you to take a look at those two dates, sort of set them aside for now, because I have a feeling we will have sufficient to fill them between the various different pieces that are coming. I thought I saw a hand to my left.
You did. On the question of the data presentation, I think we should do that at our next meeting. I think earlier transparency is better than later transparency. I think we've been talking about this data, and in fact, for anyone who's been watching, we certainly gave the impression that the data was going to be presented several weeks ago. We decided that it was not ready at that time. I agreed with that. But I think we have someone who's been working with the superintendent, and I think this is information that will inform, potentially, it will certainly inform the discussion about the following year, but it may also inform this discussion about what I would call in large part, the French immersion English co-taught challenge. So I think we need to have the discussion. I agree with Ms. Bagley-Jones. We're going to be talking about it. It's going to generate probably more issues, more questions, and hopefully some conclusions. But I think we should see the data. I think any parents that are interested should see the data, and it's information that should be available. So I think we should get it out there.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The data person, what is her schedule?
That's the night that she's available, July 25th.
She's free, right?
Yes.
Let's do
I
it.
mean, she's free, we're not paying her, and she's free that evening.
Both, yes.
Yes and yes.
All right, so I'd ask you to put those down, and we'll follow up with scheduling. I'll talk to the superintendent about a schedule for a retreat meeting as to what would be good for that, whether we can fit those into those dates or not, or whether we'll do it as a separate event. Couple other pieces. Every fall is, of course, the MASC annual meeting. We usually elect a representative to go if someone is interested in going. The reason I bring this up is if we register the person before July 15th, we get a discount on the registration fee. It is a long way away, and I don't know if people know what their November 7th through 10th, I think those plans are. 7th through 10th in Hyannis. I'll leave it up there if anyone is interested in being a delegate. Otherwise, we'll just put it off. The difference in registration fee is really only about $75 to do it now versus later. But if someone knew they wanted to go and wanted to represent us, that would be one thing. Otherwise, we can make the decision in the fall. So
3 days?
yes, it's actually part of 4 days, 7th through 10th. And they, as of last year, changed the schedule around a little bit. It used to be that the business meeting was the afternoon of the first day, and then there were other talk, and that, I think, has been altered, so. We'll send out the information out and see if we get responses back. Two other small pieces. First, we still don't have a representative to the MPEG committee that was here earlier this evening, so if anyone is interested, please let me know. And the other issue is I have to, we're going to need someone to replace Mr. Cohen as the person who signed the payroll warrant at Town Hall every week, so that people can get paid. I can do it after this week, but I cannot do it. It's on a Wednesday and a Thursday, and I teach all day on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So, but I mean, after this week, I could go in and do it, but request if there was someone who was available like tomorrow to go in and sign the warrant so that everyone can be paid at the end of the year. That would be very helpful.
I'll do it tomorrow. Only tomorrow.
All right. Then I will inform the town accountant to watch for you. Part of it is they like to get it done before they try to do it on it's usually ready Wednesday morning, and it needs to be done usually by Thursday afternoon. But as I say, after this week, I can go do it. This week I can. I think that concludes my section, so we had one item that Mr. Walker wanted to add on the orientation.
Yeah, so Ms. Badera, we actually started talking about this well before you got here, but
I thought it was just for me.
now you'll have the opportunity to talk about your own orientation. So this is a first stab at an outline of what the orientation would include. You have a number of attachments. One is actually taken from a larger binder that we got from the Mass Association of School Committees called Charting the Course, but they have a listing of what they see as key responsibilities of the school committee member. So you see those listed there as A through J, and then as backup you have the document that talks a little bit in more detail about what each of those things are. And next would be ethics, and I thought at a minimum we would attach our conflict of interest policy, and I've also included information from the State Ethics Commission website, which is specifically targeted at school committee members, and also provides a number where you can get more information. I thought an organizational summary would be helpful, so I'm working with Mary and Matt on an org chart that describes reporting relationships, and then school-by-school rosters that include names and titles. I thought as a budget orientation, at a minimum, we would provide the fiscal 13 budget book, but also a briefing on the budget process with Mary and Matt, information on public records and what constitutes a public record, and information on the open meeting law. So I don't need any discussion this evening, but take a look at the outline, give some thought to whether you think that it's sufficient, whether there are other things that should be on there, and maybe we can talk about it more at our June 27th meeting, July 27th. 25th meeting. That's good, because I wrote down the 27th.
Looks good.
I would remind people, just apropos of this, that if you haven't done the online state ethics quiz within the last 2 years, you are required to do so.
It's every 2 years?
Every 2 years. And a copy of your little diploma needs to be sent over to Town Hall for part of the records. Yes?
Sorry, I keep asking questions. I know Bev used to remind us of that, so I think I did it. I know I've done it, but I don't remember if it's been within the last 2 years.
You have to do it again. We're doing the whole staff again. You probably did it when we all did it,
Okay.
and we're all doing it again.
Which was just over 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. So can we get an email about it? Because we got a little email telling us what to do. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
mandatory for elected and appointed officials. I think I have to do it under 3 different hats and send it to 3 different people by virtue of different things. So it's an interesting few minutes. All right, and I think that finishes what I have. So I would move on to the Finance Subcommittee and the issue of full-day kindergarten.
Yes. So, Mrs. Kelly, would your pleasure be if Mr. Phelan started the presentation and then Mr. Gillis and then yourself?
Sure, however you would like to present it.
Thank you.
At this week's sub-finance meeting on Monday, we talked about the spike in enrollment at the kindergarten level for the 2012-13 school year. We had awaited the screenings to take place in early June to get a feel for whether or not the numbers would be exceeding the amount of seats that we would have available, and we did see a spike in the June month. I provided a memo to each of you that was emailed out, written from me to Superintendent Gormley, stating that there very well could be a need for an additional kindergarten class for the 2012-13 school year. In essence, we have 19 students at this moment who are waiting to be placed, and we only have 12 seats to provide for them if we maintain our 22 class size limit at each kindergarten. With that said, the 22 class size limit is not ideal. It's the peak. We would prefer it to be at a lower level for our kindergarten students. So what I did was I provided you an example. If we were to provide one more class of kindergarten for next year, and we were able to assign the students who are presently awaiting to be assigned, the 19 students, to their home schools at first, and then assign them to a school, as an example, the Cunningham School, and create a new class there, we would basically be able to fill up the Tucker, the Collycott, and we would still have class sizes of 22 at each of those kindergartens, and we would have class sizes of 18, 18, and 19 at the Cunningham site. Given that it's only June 27th, we do anticipate more numbers potentially rolling in July and August and throughout the school year. That would give us the flexibility and the capacity to have available seats if, in fact, students do enroll in the next not only 2 months, but throughout the school year. That assignment process can be staggered and can be flexible, so we don't have to fill up every class to 22 and provide some flexibility there, but our proposal would be, my proposal would be to advocate for an opening of a new class of kindergarten, provide the school district for which someone lives in and assign them currently to that school, and then create the capacity for the district to have seats available for the summer and the remaining school year, which would be healthy class sizes at the school, which in this case would be the Cunningham. They would provide us slots to be able to put new students at that school. So I don't want to read to you. The document was emailed out, I believe, Monday or Tuesday. If anybody has any questions about this proposal, I am only speaking to the educational and the assignment piece of this and why I feel it's a good idea. I believe the capacity issue is a very important one for us as a district. I believe the class size that we will have just to start the year, if it were to remain the same, are healthy class sizes. And Mr. Gillis was going to speak to the funding source if we were in fact given permission to open up a new class at this time or over the summer.
Go ahead, Mr. Gillis.
So, with that lead-in on the last page of the packet that you have there, with the cover page from John, or actually, it's an it's not attached to it, it's just thereafter. There's a worksheet that says the full-day K program expense and revenue tuition summary 62512 to reflect an additional classroom teacher to meet our enrollment. When we do projections to build things out in the budget, we always try to do it a little bit conservatively. We don't want to be too aggressive with projecting what we're going to get in enrollment and thus projecting what we're going to get in tuition and then come up short and have to make adjustments during the school year and cut things out of a program that, you know, that we didn't plan on reducing. So if you look at our FY12 projected enrollment, which is always done on a cohort survival method and historical statistics, we projected a low enrollment of 300 students and taking in about $733,000. At the end of June, we had taken in tuition from 307 students and collected $769,000. The grant came in a few $1,000s lower than we had estimated, but the net to the program came out to the good of $30,000 of what we projected. So fiscal 12, the year that's ending right now, we're coming out a little better than we thought we were going to when we did the projection the following December before the FY12 budget year. Looking at FY13, we had initially projected with a $3,500 tuition before tuition was improved, collecting $749,000 with a low enrollment of $291, or with a higher enrollment of $301 at $785,000. It's virtually impossible to guess the exact enrollment, so we use kind of a low and high to make sure that we can make things work. At this point in the year, it is a little early for us to be over with the count of where we're at. If we ended things today, and we're a good 2 months before school actually starts, we have 310 students in the pipeline, and there are always between June and the first day of school, there are always people that come in and need to enroll before then. They moved to town, they didn't know about it, they just didn't address it, and we can't turn them away, so we have to be prepared for them. So if you just use the number of 315 students at the moment, or 316 rather, that would give us a total tuition collection of $824,087, based on where most of them are likely to fall, or where we know most of them fall, and where we project the ones that aren't enrolled yet on the discount tuition and sliding fee discount schedule. As you can see there's a range of the full tuition of $3,550 right down to free, or a state discount of $310 if they're just, that's the lowest end of it. But if they're just not eligible for free, but they can't really afford to pay anything else. So when you make those collections for audit purposes, you can't collect more than what half the program costs to run. So if we take all the expenses from the teachers, the specialists and directors who contribute some of their time to the program, the aides, which in our case, the aides wouldn't exist at all if we didn't have a full-time program in all likelihood. The health insurance for additional staff, which is not in our budget, but an agreement we have with the town for when we started the program. Some money for supplies, the additional buses, because back before we had a full-day kindergarten program, we actually had less kindergarten students. We had more students going off to private school for the full-day program. And an allocation for administrative overhead. When you add all those things up and subtract the state grant, we can recover up to $862,000. That $824,000 is 95.6% of the planned expenses we can recover. Expenses may not shake out exactly that amount, because there could be some teacher turnover, and there could be a new salary schedule or aide turnover, or people could change their health insurance plans, and the enrollment could fluctuate just a little bit. But where we're at, we could be able to absorb that without any changes to the budget, the general fund budget. There wouldn't need to be an additional appropriation. We could do this via the tuition in the way we've conservatively planned for some of those expenses. We don't plan in the budget, we don't reduce our general fund budget by $621,000 for the teachers. We reduce it by actually 6 teachers, which is a lot closer to about $480,000 to $500,000 worth of teachers that comes out. But we do take out all the aides. We have some flexibility with some of the other areas, but we take out all of the supplies, we take out all of the transportation typically. We do reduce the budget by some of the administrative allocation, but not all of it, just in case we actually don't collect all the tuition we anticipate collecting, because sometimes things can change during the year, and we have to be able to meet those expenses with the revenues that we have, not the revenues that we plan to get. So again, we conservatively estimate our tuition projections to make sure that we have enough money. In each of the last 3 years, we have exceeded the low projection, and in most cases, the high projection for the tuition. So even with the additional enrollment, and it looks like we're going to be in the 3 teens, we can afford to add the class, and I think most people would subscribe to the belief that a lower class size, especially with the younger folks, is desirable. We'd like to be in the teens in general, but we've historically been right around 20, and we try to keep it under 21. So, you know, in short and in closing, we can financially afford to do that if that's the desire of the committee. If we don't do it now, we just might be asking again at a meeting in July or August, especially if the enrollment keeps going up. So I guess at that point, are there any questions?
If we add one kindergarten class, are we putting that in a kindergarten classroom? Or will that have to be in, I mean, do we have enough kindergarten designed classrooms to hold the extra class?
Yeah, historically, we've had anywhere, but we have, that would give us, right now, we have 14 classrooms of full-day K projected, and one of those would be a co-taught. If we added one, we'd have 15. We've had in the past 15 kindergarten, 16 kindergarten classes. If you notice in the chart that we gave, it's attachment A, I tried to, at the request of sub-finance, show what next year would look like, and I also provided what the end of this year looked like per Mary Kelly's request. And I just did a little counting. In our first grade next year, we'll have 15 sections of first grade, 2 of which will be co-taught. The third grade will have 16 classes, 2 of which are co-taught. The third grade will have 16 classes, 2 of which are co-taught. The fourth grade, 15 classes, 2 of which are co-taught. And the fifth grade, which is a small group enrollment-wise, has only 13 sections, 2 of which are co-taught. So we will have enough full-day classroom spaces to host one more. It really becomes a where we put the class in to best facilitate that. So we do plan to walk both the Cunningham and the Collycott if in fact the committee is open to exploring this idea.
Is there a requirement in the grant of class size? I know previously, when it was first brought out, it was advertised as that. I mean, do you lose grant money if you go over a certain class size? Enrollment?
There's no direct requirement, and
Recommended.
there's a recommended or suggested, guideline, but the rooms are actually all built with additional square footage for the kindergarten program. The ones designed that way. Instead of 900 square feet, they're 1,200 square feet, and generally they're designed for up to 25 kids. But there isn't anybody that really wants to have a kindergarten class with 25 kids in it. We can, and that kind of segues into a look ahead for the fiscal 14 full-day K program, we can apply for additional grant money. They're giving us $10,000 per classroom if it's approved by the state, but we actually have to add the class first. But that segue into fiscal 14 is a note that the state is looking to change some of the regulations which could adversely impact the grant revenue we receive from the state. It's in a consideration period, and they just posted the comments yesterday, and I had a long discussion with Ada Rosemarin today and trading emails. Ada's one of the most plugged-in people as far as early education goes in the state, and that award was very well deserving. She's a wonderful resource to make sure that we have up-to-date information and we can adjust our plans so that everything comes out the way we said it was going to when we vote the budget each year.
But, so to reiterate, for 12-13, the grant's coming through. We have information for you for 13-14, but again, that's 2 years out. I believe your question was, do we get the grant based on student enrollment?
No.
Oh, you were talking about the size of the classroom?
The class size. I think when they opened it up initially, I remember hearing something about the class size had to remain at around 20 in order to, that was when we were first applying for the grant, so I didn't know if that would say, no.
Recommended,
Recommended.
but not required.
Mr. Walker?
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
My question was just to John. So if we open a new classroom, do we know yet where it would be? And my concern was, how does that impact the 3 tiers in terms of application into the French immersion program, right? You have to be in your home. Whatever you're in for kindergarten, you're given preference. So if somebody lives in the Collycott area, but the classroom's going to be at Tucker or Glover, what happens?
I think that the issue of how we assign students for the 2013-14 school year in terms of grade 1 is going to be a topic that we'll end up discussing with the information that we receive in July and in the decision around potentially capping the program. All of that will influence how we assign grade 1 students. So I think that if everything remained equal, as an example, we need to pay attention to how we structure our kindergarten classes and how they feed into first grade. We took very much pride in organizing our kindergarten classes, i.e. we had 4 kindergarten classes at Collycott, and we had 4 first grade sections, 2 French, 2 English. So we did that purposefully to organize K to 1 transition. We did, 2 years ago, have to have 4 kindergartens at Cunningham, for example. So we will have to look strategically at how we or where we put this kindergarten class, but I put an asterisk on that because there is the potential for how we assign our first grade students for the following school year. There's potential for that to change.
So to that point, a follow-up, the class, if we add the extra full-day kindergarten, Tucker and Glover have no room. So the class has to go, Collycott or Cunningham, it has to go to either school.
Can I just follow up on that?
Sure.
I guess my concern is, and I hear you, John, and I agree that we're going to have to look at the data, we're going to have to keep talking about this program, but one of the things we worked so hard on the world language thing was being consistent with our message to parents. So if the rules are X, we add another classroom and the rules become Y,
Well,
gonna be an issue.
There's 2 things you have to address. We have a variable of high enrollment and need for an extra class of kindergarten.
Yep.
There's no, we can either gamble and not open one to stay
Right.
consistent, and then we will have an oversubscription of, we'll have classes of 23 and potentially 24. So with that being said, we have to address that problem first. When we address that problem, we need to do so in a strategic way to make sure that we're being as thoughtful as possible as to how students are assigned the following year. So we understand the dynamic. It's exaggerated by the fact that we are exploring and discussing whether or not we want to change the overall assignment process for grade 1. So all of that, the district is understanding. All of that we will look at as we look at what school is most able to handle opening of an additional kindergarten.
Okay,
And
thank you.
so, to Ms. Bagley-Jones's point, because we've had more time to think about this, and you zeroed right in on one of the issues, it's either Collycott becomes 5 kindergartens, or Cunningham becomes 4.
Got it.
And I think another differentiating or impacting factor would be what district, after the students are assigned, the students within the next 2 weeks, which district they live in.
Mhm.
But again, we're narrowing in. There is no room at the Tucker. There is no room at the Glover. It's either going to make, again, the Collycott 5 or the Cunningham 4. And again, within the next 2 weeks, we spoke at Finance Subcommittee to Ms. Kelly and Mr. Walker that I believe in the next 2 weeks, we'll have a better handle on the actual numbers and what district the children come from.
So on this, it was,
Did you forget?
I thought you had given
I
up.
let Ms. Bagley-Jones go first, but that didn't mean I didn't have a question. And I'm actually glad I did. So one of my questions was, will this in any way affect French immersion, first English or co-taught? And the answer is yes, but we're not sure how. Which quickly leads me to the conclusion that I don't think we can put this larger discussion off for the summer. But in any case, I don't think that's fair, and Ms. Bagley-Jones alluded to this. I don't think it's fair to parents to say, well, we're doing this now, but we don't really know what the impact is going to be. We've got enough uncertainty right now that I think we have to answer all of those questions at the same time. I know that creates some difficult timing, but I'm not prepared to vote for this until we can say, here's what the impact is going to be. And I'm sure that whatever we decide, someone's not going to be happy, but at least we'll be able to say, here it is, here's the plan. And then second, I'm not prepared to vote for this tonight. But my other question was, Matt, I'm not clear. This says we're adding $94,600 in additional costs. Did you say that we won't need to find that elsewhere in the budget?
No, we won't, because the budget doesn't get reduced exactly by $862,000, because we're never completely certain that we're going to collect, whether it be $759,000 or $824,000. The budget is conservatively reduced. So with additional tuition, we'll be able to absorb the cost in the revolving fund without having to lower or deficit spend in the general fund accounts.
That's if we reach the 316 in enrollment?
Well, that even at 310, but I just went and projected out a little further because we're going to, in all likelihood, get some more kids from today. From the going back to June, the last 3 years I've been here and the year before, we've always had more enrollments, and I think most school systems kind of find that going into kindergarten or going into first grade, the enrollment from what you're looking at in June and what you actually have on day one is usually a greater number, because they're usually not telling you that they're withdrawing unless you're chasing them down for tuition payments. And you know, we're doing a pretty good job of collecting the deposits and whatnot so far this year based on where we were at the end of yesterday.
Let me reframe that just a bit. So
Okay.
what's the minimum enrollment we would need to achieve in order for us not to have to fund this from somewhere else in the budget?
Probably between 305 and 308. It would depend exactly, you know, whether or not they were paying the full tuition or what type of discount they were, but it's probable that we're going to be able to do it, and that we need to do it based on the belief that we don't want to have class sizes over 22.
Thanks.
Ms. Kelly?
So is there an additional teacher also from the previous year, or from this year's kindergarten that could be applied for this?
Yes. So you're right, Ms. Kelly's referring to the one teacher in the Milton Public Schools that's not assigned in the budget. We forecasted 2 co-taught kindergartens. That's been our history, running 2 programs, one at Glover and one at Tucker. The needs of the students coming out of the preschool and entering into the Milton Public Schools right now only calls for us scheduling 1 co-taught classroom at the Glover. And so we have that additional class at the Tucker running, but we don't need the 2 teachers. We don't need the special ed teachers. So in Finance Subcommittee, I've brought to the attention that we have that 1 teacher in the budget that hasn't been assigned. So we're really running 2 avenues, Ms. Kelly. 1, we have that teacher, and 2, where with the tuition and the grant, could we possibly fund the additional classroom?
Right. So we have 2 avenues of resources, I think, is what we're saying. So I think the administration is saying that they fully believe that within our present budget, without impacting anything else, that we'll be able to fund the additional teacher and aide for this classroom. I would say from an educational perspective that we should vote, if you wanted a conditional vote, you know, based on how enrollment plays out over the next several months. I think that makes sense. In terms of impact on the whole French-English, I think we need to put education first. And I understand that there's going to be some complications, and there's a whole bunch of work to do to try and figure out how to best serve all kids with all programs that we provide. And I think to put off the vote and to basically not allow the administration to be filling that additional classroom will not be in the best interest of our kindergarten kids next year.
Speckley John.
I was thinking some of the same things, and I brought up some of the concerns. I think to hire a classroom teacher, have that classroom teacher set up their classroom, have the kids know who the teacher's going to be is really crucial. I mean, are we in summer yet? We're almost in summer. And, you know, kindergarten kids and parents need to know where they're going and who their teacher's going to be. That's really important. So I didn't mean to suggest we not go ahead. My concern is, I think one of the reasons the World Language Committee, in my opinion, was very successful, John, is that you really led the charge to be very clear, very specific, have it in writing, have all the details worked out, because there are high emotions around this, not just the French and English issue classrooms, but where's my kid going to kindergarten? Because it's kindergarten. So the clearer and more consistent we can be in writing, because we all tend to forget the details as time goes by, the better off I would feel about this plan. I just don't see how we can wait to hire a kindergarten teacher or get that person on board in the classroom and tell the kids who they are. That's not a great way to start off kindergarten experience. So I would want us to go ahead and vote for the teacher, but I very much want to see really specific language about how this is going to impact these kids in a year. And we may not know that, but then we have to put that somewhere and say what we're going to do about that.
Mr. Walker.
So I think I am putting education first. I'm thinking about that as well. But I'm feeling a sense of urgency about this larger issue that I think is important to keep in mind, and that is that we've set a schedule for ourselves that, frankly, I think is a little leisurely, and I don't think we can do that. I think that we were on a track. You made a recommendation that was for this year, but we were on a track to decide this within a month or two, I thought. Now we're talking about maybe summer, maybe September, October, November. When are we going to make this decision is the question. When are we going to have a proposal as to what the decision is that we should make?
Which decision?
When will we have a proposal on what the solution is to the first grade assignment issues?
Well, the first step is for the 25th for you to see the data. And I'm very conscious of what Ms. Kelly said, that I want the community involved. So on the 25th, I'll come up with a proposal after the data is out. We've been successful as a school committee going out to individual schools, hearing back from the community. So after the presentation, I would want the public, parents to have some time to react. But I think that when we make the presentation on the 25th, I'll have a proposal to you. That you then, again, there'll be feedback. I'm sure there'll be reaction to the data, but I could see a recommendation coming on the 25th when we have the data.
Could we use the vote to vote that there needs to be an extra kindergarten class and then wait? I mean, it sounds like the issue is the placement of the class. So, I mean, that there definitely needs to be another kindergarten class, and then if that's the issue, to talk more about I mean, they send out letters in August, right?
Late August. And back to Mr. Walker's point, in relation to the recommendation of capping that I made, if that were the decision of the school committee, then that's going to put in place having to have a committee to determine what that looks like. I believe to the point of, again, what will it look like? What will the capping look like? Which brings up the whole discussion about where the kindergarten classroom goes to. They're all involved with one another.
Well, in the interest of getting some resolution on this, if people are interested in authorizing the superintendent to be able to open a extra kindergarten class if the need arose, I would appreciate a motion to that effect, so at least we can vote on something. Ms. Kelly.
So moved with the understanding that the funding for the additional positions, that being a full-time kindergarten teacher and an aide, are found within the present budget, and with any additional tuition that would be coming in as a result of increased enrollment.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bagley Jones. Any further discussion on that? Yes.
Do we want to mention something in there as an amendment? I'm not sure exactly how to do that, about we're looking for more information on placement, like what Becky was trying to say, something about what you were saying. We want to go ahead and approve the position, but we want to hear more about the details.
I think the location of it, I think, is really an administrative function. Our charge is, the budgetary issue of bringing a new person on board and so forth.
Okay.
Mr. Walker, he's correct to disagree with me.
I said this on Monday morning. Under normal circumstances, I would agree that the location is an administrative matter and is thus under the purview of administration. However, since we are deciding what looks to be a major policy issue with regard to first grade assignment, and the recognition that this could in fact impact that issue, I think it falls squarely within our policy responsibility, so I don't agree that it is simply an administration matter.
Given what Ms. Gormley said about it's going to be either a fifth kindergarten at Collicott or a fourth at Cunningham, in either case, we will have one more kindergarten than we would really have room for first grade, or at least more than the buildings were designed for. Cunningham being a 3-unit school and Collicott being designed as a 4-unit school. In either case, we'll have one too many kindergartens in there, and so something is going to happen. So I think, absent the possibility of putting it at Tucker or Glover, I don't think the outcome is going to change one way or another if it's going to be in one of those two schools.
It appears it's going to exacerbate the situation.
Any further discussion?
Is there anybody who can come up with a suggestion about how we can incorporate that? Because I do agree with you, but I do think we need this kindergarten teacher, we need to go ahead with it. But the concern about what's going to be the clear plan and the process of the communication about it, I trust that you guys will do that. I just want to make that part of agreeing to this position.
Mr. Phil.
I guess in an attempt to put this very complex issue into more of a linear view, is that the kindergarten class is, I believe people feel, is needed in terms of to provide the district capacity. The next step is whether or not we, when we present the data around what grade 1 looks like in the program concerns we have and how we organize the French and English programming, how we assign students, is the next step. At that point in time, the school committee will either decide that they think it is a good idea to move forward with a capping proposal or not, or maybe we'll need more time to decide and have more discussion. So that discussion could then bring itself still into September, till more people have feedback. If in fact that decision is made that there is a presentation and the data suggests that changing how we assign students in grade 1 is something that you would like to do and it involves capping, then there's another group that's going to have to decide what in fact capping looks like. That conversation will really inform or really impact this whole, how many kindergartens do you have in every school, and what do those, quote, odds are, what does that dynamic look like when you have more Ks than you have grade 1s in your building? So I just, in an attempt to visually put it on a line, we still have to address whether or not we want to be able to provide the district the capacity it needs to potentially educate our kindergarten students for this year. I don't want to mislead and think that those decisions are all going to be made on July 25th. I don't think that they will, by the nature of the topic and the importance of the topic and the need probably for public feedback that we may not get until September. But it does start the conversation. It does get data on the table. But we won't be able to inform that conversation about how kindergartens get assigned to grade 1 until later in the conversation, until other decisions are made first. So there's a couple of billiard balls that need to be hit, that need to hit the next one, that need to hit the next one, that will answer your question. But that's not where we are. I mean, in my head, that's the sequence of events that has to happen, if that makes sense.
That's helpful.
I'm sorry?
That's helpful.
Yes.
So I would propose on this motion that we defer the vote until July 25th, at which time the administration will provide a clear timeline for when each of these decisions will be made in sequence, so that at the very least, we and all the parents who are very, very interested in this issue will have some idea of when they'll have answers to their questions.
Ms. Kelly?
I don't accept that as a friendly motion, with all due respect. I want to get a teacher hired for kindergarten. I want parents who might now be deciding whether to come to the Milton Public Schools for kindergarten to understand that we're taking class size very seriously, and that, yes, there are more difficult decisions for first grade parents, and we have a lot of work to do as a committee and as a community to figure out the best way to do that so that kids get educated equally across the board. But I wouldn't want to hold that off for another meeting.
And I'm very interested in those parents who are coming. I'm also interested in the parents who are already here and who are quite invested in our system and in answers to these questions. So I don't think there's a substantive difference between now and 4 weeks from now, but maybe you do.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
I think that I would agree with you, Mary, in terms of I think we really need to go forward, and I think the message is very clear of what we're looking for to Mary and John and Matt. I mean, really clear about we're taking this very seriously for our parents that are already here, and we're taking it very seriously for not wanting confusion and angst around this process, how kindergarten will impact grade 1 the following year. I feel comfortable that you have that, our push on that, in terms of it is a policy that we're going to have to grapple with, and it is our angry parents, you as well as we will have to deal with if they feel like our communication was not clear about this. But I do really feel like we have to go ahead with hiring a kindergarten teacher. And I think a month does make a difference, even just, I mean, from an HR point of view, in terms of applicable, what the pool looks like.
Funny, I asked that question on Monday morning, and you might have been surprised at the answer, but...
Oh, okay. I would think it would make a difference, but maybe not.
So did I
There's some very
initially.
good pools out there, I guess.
Right.
Is what we're hearing.
This is a buyer's market.
For elementary teachers.
Any further discussion? We have a motion on the table, which is to authorize the superintendent to go ahead with adding an additional kindergarten teacher, subject to the expectation that it won't cost more out of our general fund budget. Yeah, I guess I should say kindergarten teacher and aide, to add another kindergarten classroom. Seeing no hands for further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? It's 4-1.
Good discussion.
Anything else under the Finance Subcommittee?
No, thank you to the administration for all the work on this.
Any responses to prior citizens speaks? Or whatever the plural of that is. Yes.
We can't respond to tonight. We wait until the next
We
time
generally wait till the next one
Yes,
to
I just wanted
respond
to be
to
clear.
citizens speak.
Okay, thank you.
And I see no one here for an additional citizen speaker. Any, other than the items we've already mentioned, any other pressing items for upcoming agendas? Ms. Kelly?
Not a pressing item, but just would ask that the minutes for our regular meetings get updated online. I think we're a bit behind in terms of posting those on the website. And I think actually a candidate may have mentioned that we're a little bit behind on that as well. So just to get that taken care of. Thank you.
All right, so our only other agenda item would be, would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of contract negotiation. I believe it's only non-union.
It is, just
Only non-union personnel and negotiation strategies concerning our other collective bargaining units for next time around.
So moved.
Second.
That requires a roll call vote. Ms. Badera?
I'm sorry.
It requires a roll call vote. I have to call around. Yes. Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Ms. Bagley-Jones is out of the room at the moment.
Yes.
Ms. Kelly, yes. So it is 4-0. Thank you, Cable. Good night.